assist the position of the third mothership. Who is it? What is happening? Who has locked onto the third mothership? What could pose such a significant threat to them? It is crucial to ascertain this quickly. If a more advanced civilization has entered the Kyoto area, we must be informed immediately and send patrols in the direction of the third mothership to determine who the threat is. The entire operations center has become busy, attempting to patrol the area toward the third mothership's alert direction, but they found nothing. Meanwhile, in the direction of Kyoto, the 3 armed helicopters are gradually distancing themselves. While the formidable third mothership of the Strim civilization hovers at the edge of the ruins of Kyoto, heavy artillery pointed skyward, ignoring the departure of the human helicopters. They are sensing a substantial threat. Inside the third mothership, the Strim civilization beings, resembling dwarves, have already sounded the first-level alarm. Just 5 minutes ago, before their third mothership even entered the visible range of Yongxi and others, it had already been locked onto. They still have not confirmed the enemy ship's location, and the command level of the third mothership is in chaos. They are astonished to find that their stealth system is completely ineffective against the unknown enemy ship. Still unable to confirm? Who is it? Is it a revived civilization from another era? The unknown target attacked our aircraft, but did not target humans. Could it be a secret weapon of humanity? It is impossible. We have already destroyed the capital of the human region, and they haven't stirred up much of a response. Humanity simply does not possess such technology. We are unable to pinpoint the location, as the opponent's stealth system is extremely advanced, suspected to be in an optical cloaking state, making it difficult for optical observation devices to detect. We can only determine the general direction of the opponent, but cannot ascertain the specific location. Our position has been locked by their main weapon, and they could fire at any moment. Prepare to endure the strike and get ready to trace back the system. Since it is a main weapon, once fired, we will definitely be able to capture its firing position. Once the location is confirmed, we will open fire comprehensively, sinking the unknown enemy ship at all costs. The opponent seems to possess very advanced technology, so we are raising the first level of alert. Our ship could be taken down in one hit, and everyone should prepare for impact. Send a warning message to the second mothership and relay a cautionary message to the first mothership. We have encountered an unknown enemy ship that is highly advanced, and our ship has been locked. First mothership, do not expose your position and do not enter recklessly. Repeat, we are facing a formidable threat from the Strim civilization. Within the massive warship, all individuals are busy and entering a state of full readiness, with signals being rapidly transmitted. The third mothership looms in the sky, armed with heavy artillery, resembling a lion warning its opponent, displaying its fangs to showcase its strength, signaling not to attack or approach. Yet beneath this display lies a deep-seated fear and vigilance towards the unknown target. At Military Base 6, Gao Xian is equally alarmed. These revived civilizations are increasingly powerful and arrogant, wielding force and taking advantage of the global mutations of the apocalypse, leaving humanity struggling to hold its ground. The destruction of the survivor base in Kyoto resulted in countless survivors being slaughtered. They are filled with both hatred and helplessness, forced to retreat and watch everything unfold. Because if they do not yield, even more will perish. Humanity's system has been severely impacted by the global mutations of the apocalypse, compounded by the emergence of numerous revived civilizations, leading to a weakening of their power. This is a desperate situation. Among the 4 civilizations besieging Kyoto, the Strim civilization is not the strongest, but it is undoubtedly the second most formidable. Their revival speed is rapid, and their ancient steel mothership is hidden deep within the mountains. Once revived, they directly activated this massive weapon they left behind, crushing everything in its path. However, they are now filled with vigilance and tension. Who is it? Who is taking action? Who has locked onto their mothership? Armed helicopters are flying farther away, and even the forces of Xian Yongxi have received orders to gradually fall back. Yet the standoff continues, lasting for 25 minutes. The third mothership does not dare to retreat. Positioned at the edge of the ruins of Kyoto, confronting the void, but they do not receive the anticipated strike. About an hour has passed, and the second steel mothership, resembling a mountain range, appears outside the Kyoto area. This is the reinforcement from the second mothership. 2 steel motherships echoed each other, resembling gigantic mountain fortresses towering high above, while below them lay a human city in ruins, so small it seemed like a toy that could be easily trampled. At that moment, the lock on the Strim civilization suddenly disappeared. The threat vanished in an instant, and the 2 massive motherships looked around in the sky, trying to find traces of each other, but just as elusive as the arrival and strike of the other, their disappearance was equally difficult to track. They were left wondering who had fired upon them, who had locked onto them, and why they ultimately did not engage in combat. They could only assume that the other side had decided to withdraw, believing they could not take down both motherships. Finally, the alert status of the third mothership was lifted, and the gun barrels slowly retracted as a message was broadcasted across the entire Kyoto region. It was a question, filled with deep vigilance and doubt from the Strime civilization, broadcasted openly without encryption. Who are you? Unfortunately, there was silence. No one answered. However, the events of the day quickly spread among the four major civilizations and humanity in the direction of Kyoto. Chapter 254. Unpredictable Waves. The battleship is entering silent mode. Optical cloaking system is functioning normally. Main guns are powering down. A gentle female electronic voice prompted in the bridge. Captain Wang Chung lightly pushed aside the main gun's safety control platform in front of him, and the virtual console quickly disappeared in response to his action. Wang Chung then looked up. In the holographic display, two massive mountains of debris were converging from two directions above the ruins of Kyoto. Even from nearly 200 kilometers away, one could feel the heavy oppressive force emanating from those colossal cold steel fortresses. They looked tattered, yet they were not truly in disrepair. Their outer armor, resembling a heap of junk, was actually composite armor 3 meters thick, with complex defensive structures inside. In the sky, they were moving floating fortresses. On the ground, they were enormous steel bastions, powered by nuclear energy, filled with the raw strength of heavy industry, yet also fiercely formidable. The heavy armor and artillery were intimidating. Without a doubt, they were weapons of mass destruction on the ground, and the conventional weapons carried by human Air Force fighter jets would find it hard to contend with them. Forget it, Wang Chung thought. Even though our 200mm caliber electromagnetic railgun can ensure a hit at this distance, given the defense of this metal behemoth, we could at most only damage it severely. Furthermore, we have not confirmed the location of its nuclear power source. If we inadvertently triggered its reactor, our battleship and the military forces lying in wait nearby would also be affected. Su Xinghai shut down one side of the intelligence system, which had been precisely calculating the possible outcomes of firing just now. Their battleship had been scanning the mothership of the Strime civilization, but so far, only surface structural information had been obtained, and the internal situation remained unclear. However, this was not the reason Wang Chung ultimately refrained from firing. He looked to the side. Have you found it? The unidentified aircraft that locked onto us? The general direction has been confirmed, but no fire has been exchanged, so we cannot fully ascertain the situation. On one side, Wang Qi raised his head and reported their status immediately. Just now, an 8th-level battleship from Wang Chung was nearby, which had locked onto the number 3 mothership of the Strime civilization. This 8th-level battleship made the Strime civilization feel threatened and had been elusive. However, after Wang Chung opened fire, it was also locked onto by another entity. After Xu Bing used the 2 turbine laser cannons acquired from the upgrade of the 8th-level battleship to destroy 10 cylindrical aircraft of the Strime civilization that were pursuing their armed helicopter formation. Their battleship attracted the attention of another civilization, an unknown aircraft also in full stealth mode that locked onto their position. Yet, it seems that the opponent could not completely breach Wang Cheng's stealth system and had not truly opened fire. The opponent recognized the strength of Wang Cheng's battleship but did not know who they were, so they remained motionless. As a result, Wang Cheng could not detect them either. Thus, this became the real reason why Wang Cheng did not open fire. The situation in the Kyoto region was more complex than he had imagined. Upon arriving in the Kyoto area, he unexpectedly encountered 2 powerful civilizations. The current Strime civilization alone had comprehensive strength surpassing that of cloud life forms and super fungi. What shocked Wang Cheng even more was that the survivor base in Kyoto had already been destroyed. When he arrived, he found only ruins. Below him, the human forces, whose movements Wang Cheng had fully grasped, were quietly retreating. Wang Cheng did not attempt to contact them immediately because, at that moment, the Strime civilization was broadcasting outward, directly inquiring who was attacking them. Wang Cheng could not respond, and he understood that the inquiry from the Strime civilization was not merely a question. They were also issuing a warning to the entire area. An unknown presence had emerged within the Kyoto region that even made them feel vigilant. In this corner alone, a 3-way standoff had formed, with Wang Cheng and the enemy ships, whose identities he had not yet determined, both shrouded in shadows. Only the 2 aerial steel fortresses of the Strime civilization were visible. In such a critical moment, Wang Cheng could not contact the military in the Kyoto region. He directly entered a silent state, like a whale submerged in the sea, large in size but silently sinking, ultimately to be submerged by the water and vanish from sight. The unknown enemy ship hidden in the dark did not know who Wang Cheng was, and Wang Cheng did not know who they were. As Wang Cheng retreated, the opponent seemed to withdraw as well. Above the ruins of Kyoto, there was again a dead silence, and after a moment, the massive aerial fortress of the Strime civilization slowly turned. Wang Cheng's battleship was advancing around the ruins of Kyoto, in complete silence and at a low speed. Unless someone collided with it, no one in the region could detect Wang Cheng's battleship. Looking at the scene of Kyoto below, a heavy expression appeared in Wang Cheng's eyes. Many people inside the Fengtian survivor base were unaware that he had come to Kyoto. Making this decision was not a rash move. On the day of the celebration banquet, Wang Cheng successfully completed the upgrade of the Level 8 battleship. The Level 8 battleship, equipped with 60,000 energy points, represented another significant leap in capability, with an unprecedented enhancement in overall performance. The main gun alone was upgraded from a 600mm electromagnetic railgun to a 200mm caliber, transforming it into a true behemoth. The battleship's length was stretched to 170 meters, effectively doubling its span, and its structure leaned more towards a rectangular shape, with smooth, streamlined edges. The battleship featured a tiered structure from top to bottom, consisting of weapon modules, a bridge command unit, a crew living compartment, and more. The Level 8 battleship could now completely shed the label of merely being an aircraft, truly deserving its title as a space vessel. Wherever it went, it exuded a formidable power. Even the terrifying aerial fortress of the Nastream civilization could not withstand the fierce strike of Wang Cheng's battleship's main gun. Of course, Wang Cheng ultimately did not open fire. The situation in Kyoto was unpredictable. He had just learned that the survivor base there had already fallen. However, arriving in Kyoto was a joint decision made by Wang Cheng, Wei Lao, Yi Anshan, and other senior members of the Fengtian survivor base, as well as Wang Cheng's own initiative. On one hand, Wang Cheng learned from Wei Lao that Fengtian had lost contact with Kyoto for over 5 days, which hinted at troubling signals. On the other hand, Fengtian province was relatively close to Kyoto. If problems arose there, Fengtian would be the first to suffer the consequences. Based on the limited information previously relayed from Kyoto, the situation was already dire, facing attacks from 4 major civilizations. Given the proximity between Fengtian and Kyoto, and with the performance of Wang Cheng's battleship, he could quickly travel between the 2 locations. Therefore, after careful consideration, Wang Cheng decided to personally visit Kyoto. In the worst-case scenario, if the front line in Kyoto collapsed, the civilizations in that direction would no longer be restrained in their development. Similar to the current situation of the Fengtian survivor base, gaining a crucial and valuable period of growth. If they then advanced towards Fengtian, it would be a significant problem. Wang Cheng could not afford to wait until the threat grew uncontrollable before taking action. For this reason, he proactively proposed to head to Kyoto to assess the situation. Although he had prepared for the worst, he truly did not expect that something had indeed gone wrong in Kyoto. The survivor base had been reduced to rubble, and everywhere was in ruins. The mothership of the reviving civilization moved through the remnants of what was once the capital of the Huaxia region, collecting metallic materials from the city's ruins, seemingly unbothered. This place appeared to have become the territory of an alien civilization, with humanity having long vanished. According to the data, the scale here was even larger than that of the Fengtian survivor base, with a garrison several times its size. As the battleship swept through the ruins, Su Xinghai looked down at the devastated world beneath him, a complex expression appearing on his face. A few years ago, when I visited Kyoto, I envisioned coming back here to work after graduation, thinking it was a bustling place. But now, Zhang Chao's expression is quite grim. Wang Cheng's gaze, however, is slowly rising, fixated on the towering steel structures moving through the urban area. They remain unaware that the target they are so vigilant about is actually flying right beside them, almost keeping pace with their steel floating mothership. Looking further into the distance, the Stream civilization is erecting massive factories amidst the ruins, tirelessly constructing new steel motherships. Wang Cheng understands. He has arrived just in time. If he had come any later, without the strong checks of human civilization, who knows how much the revived civilization here would have grown. By then, it might not just be 2 motherships, but 7, 10, or even more. There is still a chance. The power of Kyoto has not been completely dismantled. They have only just begun to enjoy the fruits of victory. It is crucial to extinguish the sparks of these revived civilizations before they can spread like wildfire. Chapter 255. Base 6. The daylight is gradually fading. Kyoto's 6th military base has welcomed back the armed helicopters that were on a mission. This time, they not only rescued a group of surviving family members, but also brought back important seed samples preserved in Kyoto. Xiang Yongxi was also among the first to return to Base 6. This time, upon their return, their expressions were quite peculiar, not excited, yet not dejected either. The medical team that greeted them was astonished to find that none of them had been injured. Xiang Yongxi shook his head at the medical officer. We didn't even fire a shot. The medical personnel looked bewildered. We heard you encountered an attack from the Stream civilization. You returned successfully. The mission wasn't a failure. How is that possible? I think I'm just as confused as you are, Xiang Yongxi admitted. Even now, he still doesn't understand what happened. He hopes to find a definitive answer upon returning. But he hadn't taken a few steps when he heard a massive sound overhead. Penetrating through the air, the surrounding soldiers became tense and alert. Outside the military base, a huge unmanned airship was flying in the sky. The airship had a rudimentary structure, serving only one purpose: to patrol the area around Kyoto day and night, broadcasting statements from the revived civilizations everywhere. Humans, your Kyoto has been destroyed. Your civilization is like a candle in the wind, about to extinguish. Give up resistance and surrender to us. Any revived civilization is willing to accept your surrender. As long as you promise not to reproduce and work for us until death, we will protect your lives. Inside Base 6, the soldiers' faces looked grim as they peered through the observation holes. Above them, the gigantic airship was passing directly over the base, broadcasting messages in both the local language and English, echoing across the land. The airship bore scarlet lettering on both sides stating, "Humans are on the brink of extinction. Surrender to survive." However, Xiang Yongxi merely glanced back, shook his head, his expression darkening as he stepped forward. There are many of these airships wandering around the Kyoto area, spreading terror-inducing rhetoric. Everyone wants to take them down, but no one actually does, because everyone understands that this is a psychological tactic. Whoever fires will expose their own position. It would be a heavy price to pay in terms of soldiers' lives just to shoot down propaganda airships produced en masse by those revived civilizations. Especially now that the survivor base in Kyoto has been breached, every individual's strength is precious. The officer beside him whispered, looking at it from another angle. This is a good thing. It proves that we still pose a threat to these from major civilizations. Otherwise, they wouldn't even need to prepare these airships. The survivor base in Kyoto has fallen, but the main forces of humanity have successfully broken through, taking refuge in secret military bases around Kyoto. Meanwhile, within the controlled areas of the 4 revived civilizations in the Kyoto region, they have been launching harassment tactics, causing significant trouble for them as well. However, Xiang Yongxi knows that this does not fundamentally solve the problem. The current strength in Kyoto cannot confront the forces of the 4 major revived civilizations head-on. Just the Strim civilization alone is enough to give them a hard time. If they were to deploy thermonuclear weapons, it would be a case of inflicting 1,000 points of damage on the enemy while suffering 800 in return. As for other heavy weapons capable of destroying the Strim civilization, they are not naive targets. It is unrealistic to think that simply launching weapons can obliterate them. The existing level of weaponry can destroy their motherships, but achieving that in actual combat is quite difficult. The main structure of Military Base 6 is located deep underground. It used to be a tightly controlled military zone, storing a large number of advanced weapons and ammunition. Now, a vast area has been designated for survivors to reside. Xiang Yongxi and his unit must pass through this area, where the survivors are almost in a state of lament. Heavily influenced by the propaganda efforts of the 4 revived civilizations, and the air is thick with despair. The officer beside Xiang Yongxi quietly said, "I've heard that the situation is not just bad here in Kyoto, it's dire worldwide. In many places, humanity is nearly being wiped out by these revived civilizations. There's even a growing pessimism in many areas, with some believing that these revived civilizations are the true masters of Earth, and we humans are merely transient visitors, intruders in their domain. Thus, we are not their match, and fighting against them would mean certain death." Xiang Yongxi remained silent, only letting out a sigh. He naturally knows these things. If the situation in Kyoto is this dire, how could he not guess the condition of other regions? Moreover, there have indeed been various rumors circulating, especially after the fall of the survivor base in Kyoto, with unprecedented levels of pessimism. This is unavoidable, as hope seems elusive. Even Xiang Yongxi sometimes feels a faint sense of desolation and despair in his heart. He cannot see any opportunity for a turnaround. The only fortunate aspect is that the highest commander of the Huaxia region did not perish during the fall of the Kyoto survivor base, but survived and has now become the backbone of the military in this area, coordinating the overall operations. Therefore, Xiang Yongxi whispered, even in the toughest times, we, the people of Huaxia, have endured before. Now, it's just that our enemies have changed. The highest commander has not given up, and we will definitely hold on. If we give up now, our human civilization will be finished. Those foreign races, their so-called surrender is clearly an attempt to turn us into their slaves, to annihilate our kind through prohibiting our reproduction. If that is the case, I might as well end my own life with a single shot. One day, we will reclaim the capital, tit for tat, blood for blood. Xiang Yongxi's voice was somewhat cold and fierce, yet it reflected his true thoughts. The battle for the survival base in the capital had a tremendous impact on him. The massive steel fortress crushed the outer defenses, and wherever it passed, humanity's lines melted away like snow. Above, suspected kinetic weapons from a powerful civilization among the 4 great civilizations leveled the command center of the capital's survivor base in an instant, leaving behind a terrifying pit hundreds of meters deep, where countless people cried out in agony as they perished. The survivor base in the capital had over 1 million survivors, who were crazily slaughtered before these foreign races, and in the end, fewer than 200,000 managed to be evacuated. Everyone understood that this was no longer a global disaster, but a war of extinction. Their opponents were completely different species from humanity, and failure would lead to catastrophic consequences. Human civilization would be utterly erased from this planet. Yet, there was also a hint of confusion in Xiang Yongxi's heart. He had spirit and blood, but in modern warfare, these alone were not enough. How could they defeat their enemies when the capital's survivor base was still standing? They barely held on. Now that it had been crushed, humanity could only hide in underground military bases, while brother troops in other regions were also struggling to survive. In such circumstances, how could they reclaim the capital? His adjutant also whispered, reclaiming the capital. Yes, the highest commander said that these revived civilizations have both advantages and disadvantages. Although we are clearly inferior to them in certain advanced fields, in terms of numbers and equipment, even if we lost the capital's survivor base, we are still stronger than any one of them. Their civilization has slumbered for a long time, possessing only a technological advantage. As long as that advantage is not overwhelmingly large, their single civilization's strength cannot surpass ours. This is why they have to join forces to suppress us. As long as we can find an opportunity, we can break them down one by one. A glimmer of hope and desire for the future sparkled in his eyes. The future of humanity was dim and bleak, but it was not entirely devoid of hope. Reviving civilization may have led to the development of technologies far beyond human capabilities during their time. However, in this era, it is still dominated by humans, whose military reserves and numbers are unmatched by these revived civilizations. This is also the reason why, at this stage, most of these revived civilizations choose not to engage in conflict with each other, but instead unite to confront humanity. But everyone knows that if they continue to develop, gradually restoring the glory of their civilization, humanity will lose even its initial advantage. At this moment, Gao Xian sent someone to call Xiang Yongxi directly to the command center of Military Base 6. Within the command center of Base 6, they were still pursuing the traces of an unknown entity that was in confrontation with the Strime civilization, but had found nothing. Gao Xian summoned Xiang Yongxi to inquire about the situation on site. He also reported this information to the highest commander of the Huaxiao region at Military Base 1, who emphasized the need to uncover, at all costs, who was confronting the Strime civilization and who could alarm their two motherships as if facing a formidable enemy. The four major revived civilizations in the Kyoto region are currently in a temporary alliance, fully focused on eliminating humanity and dividing the resources of the Kyoto area. They are all striving to develop, and in the short term, there is little possibility of them rashly engaging in conflict with one another. It is very likely that other revived civilizations from different regions have flowed into Kyoto, which could disrupt the local dynamics. For humanity, this could be an opportunity or a greater crisis, so they must understand what exactly happened today. Unfortunately, Xiang Yongxi was equally perplexed about today's events. All he could provide was his judgment from the battlefield. He did not know what it was, but it certainly did not belong to the original four civilizations of Kyoto. And it was very powerful. Otherwise, the Strime civilization would not have dispatched both their second and third motherships. It was clear that they were afraid. They were afraid of that elusive enemy. Gao Xian furrowed his brows deeply. It was almost confirmed that it was not one of the four major revived civilizations. Currently, according to our reconnaissance results, apart from the Qiushan civilization, which we also cannot trace, the Strime civilization, the Feathered People civilization, and the Earthbound civilization among the four major civilizations in Kyoto have all begun to move. They are also searching and want to clarify who intruded into Kyoto today. From the commotion they are causing, this unexpected visitor is very powerful. At least, they are all wary and want to know who the other party is. However, this unknown intruder should not be strong enough to crush these revived civilizations. Otherwise, the four major revived civilizations would have chosen to flee by now. Gao Xian analyzed to himself, raising his head to glance at the busy command center, where everyone was being mobilized for this urgent matter. Just then, Gao Xian's assistant suddenly rushed over with a tense expression and whispered in his ear, "Sir, the highest commander wishes to speak with you." Gao Xian immediately showed a serious demeanor, quickly moving to answer the encrypted line from the highest commander. But after hearing just one sentence, his expression changed dramatically, because what the highest commander of the Huaxiao region said on the phone left him so shocked that he could barely hold the receiver. "We have confirmed the identity of the unknown target that confronted the Strime civilization today. It's one of ours. But you must not stop the search. The four major civilizations still don't know who he is. We need to confuse them and intensify the search. They must not find out that this is one of our people. We must keep this strictly confidential, even from our own." Gao Xian's face showed immense shock and disbelief. The unknown target, suspected of possessing optical stealth technology and laser cannons, which made it difficult for the four major revived civilizations to track, was actually from their side? When did their federation acquire such formidable power? Where did it come from? Chapter 256. The four major revived civilizations of Kyoto. Gao Xian's first reaction to this answer was not excitement, but disbelief. Having served in the Federation's upper echelons for many years, he was well aware of the Federation's capabilities and resources and the extent of its military technology development. However, until now, there had been no interstellar mothership like that of the Strime civilization, let alone the unknown entity that had appeared today. If it weren't for what the highest commander had said, Gao Xian would have surely voiced his objections, but the highest commander seemed very certain. There was no hesitation in the communication. After a brief introduction of the situation, he did not reveal who or where the imposing unknown entity that had intimidated the two motherships of the Strime civilization was. Instead, he issued a series of orders, instructing Gao Xian to compile all the information they had regarding the four major revived civilizations and upload it to Base 1 as soon as possible. Simultaneously, he assigned Gao Xian to liaise with the other side and prepare for a joint military operation in the Kyoto area. The goal was to defeat the four major civilizations and reclaim Kyoto. When the words "reclaim Kyoto" came through the communicator, Gao Xian felt as if his heart had stopped. As a soldier, his duty was to execute orders, not to ask why. The highest commander had given instructions, and he needed to think no further. All he had to do now was cooperate. Everyone in Kyoto wanted to drive out the revived civilizations and reclaim Kyoto. Now that the opportunity had arisen, it must be seized. The unknown entity, regardless of its origin, must possess formidable power to instill such fear in the motherships of the Strime civilization. Collaborating with it could potentially break the stalemate of the local forces in Kyoto being besieged from all sides. After ending the communication, Gao Xian felt as though he was in a dream, but he did not forget the task assigned to him by the highest commander. He immediately issued orders to relay any intelligence they had regarding the four major civilizations. This information was not only being transmitted from Base 6 to Base 1. Other nearby forces and military bases in Kyoto were also collecting and sending this information to Base 1. Once compiled at Base 1, the information was directly inputted into the Level 8 battleship of the Royal City through encrypted channels. A vast amount of information is emerging on the holographic display of the bridge, and Su Xinghai is using the supercomputer of the Level 8 warship to identify, classify, and to duplicate it. Meanwhile, Wang Chung stands behind the captain's chair, holding a freshly printed cup of coffee, silently observing the scene. At this moment, the Level 8 warship is docked atop a mountain range 70 kilometers outside the capital. It remains motionless and undetectable by both the four revived civilizations and humanity, hidden in silence. The joint military plan was proposed by Wang Chung and confirmed for execution after being approved by the highest commander of the regional federation. However, Wang Chung did not communicate directly with the top figure of that region. Instead, he contacted them through the survivors' base in a different area. Using his warship as a relay station, real-time communication was established between Base 1 and the survivors' base, with enhancements in various aspects of the Level 8 warship, particularly in communication signal stability and anti-interference capabilities, surpassing the Federation's technology. From his location in the capital, he successfully facilitated seamless communication between the two regions without being hindered by the severe global interference currently affecting communications. At this moment, Wang Qi said, "We have received a communication request from Gao Xian, the head of Base 6. We have confirmed his identity key with the liaison from Base 1. And he is indeed the military head of the joint operation." The audio connection was established. Wang Chung did not say much to Gao Xian and did not make an appearance. His Level 8 warship was currently in a concealed state, which itself was an advantage. He was not prepared to engage extensively with humanity either. The duration of the communication was brief, merely confirming the direction of the joint operation, with remaining details to be finalized later. Such caution is necessary because one of the four revived civilizations, Qiushan, is also searching for them. A large amount of data regarding the four revived civilizations is being transmitted in, and Wang Chung has almost confirmed that the unidentified enemy ship attempting to lock onto his Level 8 warship today belongs to the Qiushan civilization. If the Qiushan civilization ship discovers them before the Level 8 warship takes the initiative, they will lose the advantage, turning the situation from active to passive, which would complicate matters. Wang Cheng's goal for the first battle of the joint military operation is to catch them off guard, leveraging the concealment of his external support to take down one of the revived civilizations decisively. Data about the four revived civilizations is being organized by the warship's supercomputer, transforming the vast and chaotic information into an orderly format. The four revived civilizations are all situated near the capital. Among them, the most powerful is the Qiushan civilization, known for its advanced technology. According to military analysis, during their earthly era, their technological level far surpassed that of contemporary humanity. However, the total number of their civilizations seems limited. The military has only tracked their presence once, suggesting they may possess only one flat warship over 80 meters long, seemingly the only aircraft of its kind, along with its individual crew. This is a scene of ultra-long-distance movement through the mountains. Even after AI enhancement, it remains unclear. It seems that the warship appears flat, lacking outer armor, resembling a blanket flying in the sky. What kind of aircraft is this? Wang Cheng furrowed his brow. However, he did not dare to let his guard down, as he had already engaged with the opponent earlier today and knew that the technology of this civilization was not inferior to that of advanced warships. Moreover, according to military reports, this civilization was suspected of possessing large kinetic weapons. During the final battle in the capital, they launched a round of kinetic weaponry that directly destroyed the central area of the survivors' base. At this stage, the Federation had no means to achieve precise strikes with space-based weapons. Following closely behind this civilization, the second most powerful revival civilization in the capital region was the one Wang Cheng had encountered today, known for its short, dwarf-like beings with brownish skin and abundant hair reminiscent of primitive humans. However, they were fervent enthusiasts of heavy industry and massive weapons, represented by 3 motherships. Whether it was their motherships or the numerous cylindrical aircraft they carried, all were heavily armored, capable of withstanding a significant amount of conventional weaponry from a physical standpoint. Their massive aerial fortresses were filled with traps and war facilities, designed entirely for warfare. Currently, the military holds information that their motherships are remnants from their era, emerging from the mountains. Wang Cheng had seen the second and third motherships, while military records indicated the existence of a first mothership, which was significantly larger and more advanced than the second and third, a true weapon of mass destruction. However, since its emergence from the mountains, it had remained inactive, seemingly vanished. This civilization was also the most arrogant force at present, with airships flying over the capital, half of which were constructed by them. According to the available data, they appeared to have anticipated their awakening in the future, aware that it would lead to war. Their motherships contained integrated production lines, capable of continuously manufacturing weapons and ammunition. Now that the capital had fallen, human suppression had drastically declined, allowing their second and third motherships to frantically mine resources in the capital and nearby metal mines, arrogantly building a fourth and fifth mothership right under humanity's nose. They were a group of iron-making maniacs. Su Xinghai exclaimed. Xu Bing coldly stated, "We must not allow them to construct a fourth or fifth mothership. Otherwise, the situation will further deteriorate." In addition, the remaining 2 recovering civilizations are relatively weaker. The third among the 4 major recovering civilizations in the capital is a civilization known as the Winged Ones. They possess a body structure similar to that of humans, but have bird-like feathers and wings that allow them to fly in the sky. Their weapons are quite primitive, yet their numbers far exceed those of the Hill Mountain civilization and the Strime civilization. Furthermore, records indicate that they have a very strong reproductive capacity and a rapid growth cycle. A winged one can grow from a newborn child to an adult in just over a year, which is an unimaginable growth period for humans. Moreover, although the weapons they use are quite outdated, similar to those of ancient human societies, primarily consisting of homemade bows, arrows, and tools, they have a remarkable awakening talent. Over 70% of individuals in their population can successfully become entities similar to awakened beings, capable of controlling water or fire, which makes them quite formidable. Additionally, the last of the 4 major recovering civilizations in the capital is somewhat unique. These creatures resemble the earth dragons from Western legends, with massive bodies, as large as elephants when fully grown. However, military sources state that their level of intelligence is low, and they lack technological advancements. Their enormous physical presence is an advantage, but it also limits their capabilities. Despite their size and group behavior, they are the least threatening and weakest among the 4 recovering civilizations, caught up in alliances with others and engaged in conflict with humans. Each of these 4 recovering civilizations has its strengths and weaknesses. It is precisely because they work together, complementing each other's strengths and weaknesses, that they were able to decisively defeat the survivor base in the capital and occupy the high ground in the war zone. However, it must be said that the strength of these 4 civilizations far exceeds that of cloud life forms and superfungi. While they may not be as troublesome in terms of life forms as the latter, their hard power is incomparable. To know oneself and know the enemy is crucial. The royal city, coming from a distant place, knows little about the situation in the capital region. Therefore, before going to war, it is essential to understand the conditions of these 4 recovering civilizations in the area and then make a decision. Only by doing so can accurate judgments be made. The information regarding the 4 recovering civilizations has led the royal city to nearly the same conclusions as the military here. The situation of the recovering civilizations is similar to that of their own place, differing only in species and technological levels. However, they also lack sufficient numbers and have not yet restored their former glory. We have arrived at the right time, taking advantage of their weaknesses. Before these recovering civilizations regain enough strength to overpower us, we must eliminate them in their infancy. The capital region will become their civilization's grave, but it is likely to be a tough battle. Chapter 257, Joint Military Operation in the Capital. Date, July 30th, 235 of the Federation. Location, Military Base Number 6. Operations Conference Room. As Gao Xian walked into the operations conference room, he heard the officers lined up asking him questions in low voices. Who are we supposed to cooperate with? A room full of people gathered the core strength of the entire Military Base Number 6, all looking bewildered. They had received orders on short notice about an emergency pre-war mobilization to cooperate in a battle against the 4 great revival civilizations. This was the first time since the destruction of the Kyoto survivor base that they had received orders to take the initiative to attack the 4 great revival civilizations. And they were all excited. In recent days, the 4 revival civilizations had been rampant in the Kyoto area, with airships spreading inciting rhetoric everywhere. They had long been restless. But now that they were here, they were more confused than ever, even a bit dazed. They had only heard about the need to cooperate in the battle. Yet until now, no one knew who they were to cooperate with or how to engage in battle. In the corner, Xiang Yongxi also craned his neck forward. He had been eager to show those revival civilizations a lesson, but he was also perplexed. The current situation had hardly changed from before. Even the 4th mothership of the Shrine civilization was halfway constructed. In this context, how could they take the initiative to attack? Could they truly commit to it? Regarding the question of whom to cooperate with, Xiang Yongxi inexplicably thought of the unknown presence from a few days ago that had made the Shrine civilization feel threatened. However, since that day, the entity had vanished as if it had never existed. Humanity had not found it, and neither had the Shrine and other revival civilizations seemed to locate each other. It was as if it was merely a passerby who had likely already left Kyoto. Xiang Yongxi tucked away his thoughts and returned to his seat, frowning as he awaited Gao Xian to issue strategic instructions. Yet, Gao Xian did not address the confusion of the crowd. He merely swept a stern gaze across the room and immediately began deploying tasks for the various levels of troops. In this joint military operation, we will cooperate with the brother units of Military Base Number 3 to take action, targeting the 2nd mothership of the Shrine civilization located in the metal mining area 500 kilometers from Kyoto. After the Kyoto crisis ended, the 2nd mothership had once again separated from the 3rd mothership and returned to the original metal mining region to continue mining and constructing the 5th mothership on the spot. Gao Xian then began issuing battle orders step by step, and the forces of Military Base Number 6 were almost fully mobilized for a comprehensive offensive. Although those below felt somewhat strange and still did not know who they were supposed to cooperate with or how to bring down the 2nd mothership, they were all filled with fervor because this joint military operation would be the largest proactive offensive action they had taken since the fall of Kyoto. Everyone was holding their breath, waiting for this moment. In this action, we must be cautious. Our task is not a frontal attack, but to attract the attention of the 2nd mothership and sink it. If we succeed this time, we could directly sever one of the fangs of the Shrine civilization, and then we could take them down one by one, eliminating these 4 great revival civilizations one after another on the land of Kyoto. I know many of you have doubts. For example, whoever we cooperate with. And considering the speed of the Shrine mothership, if we cannot capture the 2nd mothership quickly, the 3rd mothership in the Kyoto direction will arrive soon. However, I want to emphasize that these issues are not problems. This operational order was personally issued by the Supreme Commander. We have endured long enough, allowing these revived civilizations to operate in our world, trampling on the dignity of our civilization. Now, it is time for us to strike back decisively. Our nation needs your strength, the Federation needs your strength, and countless people around the world need your strength. Gao Xian stood up from his position, his sharp gaze sweeping across the room like an eagle. In the operational conference room, every officer's face showed a long-lost fervor. Eliminate them. It's time for these arrogant, revived civilizations to understand our might. This is our world, and they must pay for their atrocities during the Kyoto massacre. The mobilization of the entire army was swiftly initiated from the top down, with officers at all levels conveying orders, and troops moving out at high speed before dusk. Military vehicles raced across the desolate land, a fierce tide of human steel pouring forth. The darkness served as cover. Not only did the entire force from Military Base 6 launch an attack, but a significant number of troops from Military Base 3 also mobilized. Their location was closer to the metal mining area where the 2nd mothership was situated, allowing them to reach the designated combat position earlier. However, they did not open fire but instead hovered outside the warning range of the Shrine civilization's 2nd mothership, waiting for the main force to assemble before launching a full assault. The armored units of Xiang Yongxi were no exception. They were marching at high speed, with heavy armored vehicles rumbling across the ground, kicking up clouds of dust. But it was difficult for them to remain silent. On the way, they encountered a winged humanoid circling in the sky. These beings had 2 wings and, while they had a humanoid structure, they looked more like giant birdmen. They could soar high in the sky, and their voices were a bizarre shriek. The creatures spotted the movements of the humans on the ground and began to screech loudly, rapidly gaining altitude. Damn it, bring it down quickly. Xiang Yongxi anxiously observed the scene from the command vehicle. If their military actions were discovered early, the encirclement of the Strim civilization's second mothership could turn into a counter-encirclement by the 4 revived civilizations. This would not only mean the end of their plans. If the forces from bases 3 and 6 suffered heavy losses, the military power of humanity in the Kyoto region would undoubtedly face devastating blows, leaving them with no means to counter the 4 revived civilizations. At that point, forget about holding on to the underground military base. The best option would probably be to withdraw from the Kyoto region. That was a scenario no soldier wanted to witness. Therefore, Xiang Yongxi was extremely tense, fearing exposure. But before they could shoot down the winged creature, he witnessed an astonishing sight. In the distant sky, brilliant fireworks began to illuminate the darkness, exploding in a series of vibrant displays. No, that wasn't fireworks. The propaganda airships created by a certain civilization exploded one after another. In the Kyoto region, humans who had been hiding without a trace suddenly emerged, firing from all directions and bringing down those noisy airships one after another from the sky. The sounds of gunfire and explosions echoed everywhere, shaking all the revived civilizations. Xiang Yongxi gasped and said in a hoarse voice, "Our colleagues across the Kyoto region are covering our actions. Quickly, we must speed up. We need to reach the designated combat position within the stipulated time. We cannot afford to delay. What we are facing now are not the foolish mutated creatures from the beginning of the apocalypse. They are civilizations like ours. And such tactics won't confuse them for long. This will be a lightning war." As an experienced soldier, Xiang Yongxi immediately recognized the true intent behind the synchronized fire from the entire Kyoto region. At this stage, humans had almost lost control of the surface in Kyoto. It was impossible to mobilize troops on a large scale without revealing their strategic intentions. Therefore, they decided to fire indiscriminately, with the military in the entire Kyoto region showing their presence. This way, while all 4 revived civilizations were shaken, no one could immediately discern the true strategic intent behind a human's actions. Xiang Yongxi was astonished. This was a major battle affecting the entire Kyoto region. Deploying forces from 2 military bases was already quite dramatic, and firing from all over Kyoto was even more shocking. This was an unprecedented move after the fall of Kyoto. He could see the confidence of Gao Xian and the elderly supreme commander of the Federation's Huaxiao region behind him. They were confident that they could achieve their strategic objectives before the 4 major civilizations could decipher the humans' intentions and take action. This would be a fast-paced lightning war. It was also a do-or-die battle, because once they fired at the second mothership of the certain civilization, their deceptive actions today would be completely exposed. The 4 major civilizations would not show mercy. Not only would reinforcements from the certain civilization come, but also the Chiu Mountain civilization, the Earthwalker civilization, and the Feathered People civilization would form a massive army. If they could not resolve the second mothership in the shortest time possible, they would find themselves surrounded. Advance means survival. A moment's delay could lead to total defeat. What great ambition! Standing in the torrent of war, bathed in the brilliant fireworks overhead, Xiang Yongxi felt a surge of blood, yet his rationality was deeply worried. They had seen the mothership of the certain civilization. Could their 2 military bases' firepower really destroy the second mothership in a short time? However, there was no turning back once the bow was drawn. They shot down the screaming feathered people in the sky and continued to forge ahead, accelerating towards the battlefield. Chapter 258. Who sank it? Clouds floated in from afar, obscuring the starlight above. Xiang Yongxi's troops had already reached the designated position. Even from a distance, the roar of the second mothership of the certain civilization could be heard. They were operating in the metal mining area at night. Not only has he taken his position, but all troops from Base 6 and Base 3 have also arrived at their target locations as per the established plan within the last 10 minutes. At this moment, their main forces are positioned at the detection edge of the second mothership, situated in the enemy's blind spot. However, as long as they move forward, it will signal the start of hostilities. Yet, Xiang Yongxi knows that their ground forces will not be the ones to fire the first shot. After waiting for a few seconds, a sharp whistle pierced the sky. Xiang Yongxi slightly raised his head and saw a dazzling light tearing through the sky above him. It was a missile barrage. Goodness, here comes a saturation strike. Xiang Yongxi muttered under his breath as he gave the order in the command vehicle for everyone to disengage from concealment, revealing their presence and charging directly into the battlefield. At the same time, the entire area began to tremble as the ambushed troops from the 2 underground military bases surged forward, rushing out while bathed in the missile's tail flames, firing in unison and charging toward the nearby second mothership of the enemy civilization. The missile struck first. They were the first to hit the target. The heavy steel aerial fortress did not respond slowly. Amidst the dull flashes, it began to descend immediately. its massive body crashing into the ground like a lead weight dropping into a river. The ground beneath it collapsed with a thunderous roar, the excavated mountain structure disintegrating layer by layer, while its frontal armor plates began to rise one by one. Many of the small creatures from the enemy civilization, operating nearby, were ruthlessly left behind, unable to return to the mothership in time. Meanwhile, from directly above the second mothership, a large number of decoy flares shot out, shining like a dazzling meteor shower in the sky. Numerous arcs of light exploded in the air. Dozens of rockets detonated at the front, while the rest covered the entire metallic mining area. Thus, the entire ground shook violently, dust billowing upwards as the fragile lower layers of the metal mine collapsed first, and the surrounding mountains began to crumble. It was an incredibly grand scene, with countless massive fireballs igniting amidst the dust. The missiles exploded one after another, striking the frontal armor of the second mothership with unparalleled force. The gigantic body slowly sank, but as the dust settled and the flames faded, the rumble and the loud sounds of mechanical movement echoed once again from the earth. It was rising into the sky once more. The nuclear power reactor provided it with a continuous energy supply. Its frontal armor was stripped away, yet only some areas were penetrated. It resembled a heavily armored giant, impervious to conventional weapons against its formidable outer armor. It swept across the ground like a behemoth. It was a scene reminiscent of the apocalypse. Around it, flames surged, the explosions roaring higher and higher, as towering mountains collapsed one after another. Yet it surged forward, heavily and fiercely, sweeping across the earth, while the firing ports of its frontal armor plates opened up, with countless dark gun muzzles protruding, unleashing a furious barrage upon the ground beneath. The human forces advanced and soon engaged in direct combat, both sides caught in a heavy downpour. Explosions erupted everywhere, with limbs and debris flying. The forces led by Yongxi also pressed forward. He was positioned on the flank, tasked with drawing the fire of the second mothership, but its firepower was overwhelming. The Strem civilization clearly suffered from a fear of insufficient firepower, as the heavy artillery carried by the second mothership had an average caliber exceeding 200 millimeters, along with numerous 50-millimeter caliber machine guns. In the night sky, the flashes of the shells streaked across the ground like crimson tongues of fire, revealing the coldness of death. A heavy tank was struck by 3 shells, turning both it and the ground beneath into scorched earth, while the soldiers behind continued their relentless advance. Their objective was to reach beneath the second mothership and target its thruster array. As a steel creation, the vertical thrusters were key to its levitation. Destroying them could bring it crashing down, or even breach its armored shell, allowing them to infiltrate and dismantle it from within. Everyone shared Yongxi's understanding of the battle's difficulty and the need for speed. Once they opened fire, their combat intentions would be fully exposed. If the reinforcements from the 4 reviving civilizations arrived, their encirclement of the second mothership would turn into a self-destructive endeavor, resulting in unnecessary losses. Thus, on the battlefield, every soldier and every unit went mad, screaming as they charged forward, firing desperately, striving to seize the initiative, seemingly forgetting that their actual mission was to attract the mothership's attention. Yet through this reckless charge, they achieved their original combat goal. Every pair of eyes was bloodshot. Under the dim sky, they fired with all their might, watching the massive second mothership roll forward like a mountain. The rocket launchers and heavy artillery did not retreat. Instead, they continued firing, unleashing their firepower against the sky and the heavy outer armor of the mothership, until it thundered closer. The entire artillery array was crushed into ruins, detonating under the enormous mothership like flashes of light. Inside the mothership, taunts in the language of a certain civilization echoed. "Humans, have you gone mad? This is a dead end. The army of the winged has already set sail, and our third mothership is approaching. You have no capability to destroy our mothership unless you use your thermonuclear weapons. But what would that accomplish? Using nuclear weapons will lead to your own annihilation. Now, we generously offer you one last choice. Lay down your weapons and surrender to us. We can let you come and lick our toes." Arrogant and conceited. This was blatant contempt. They openly announced the movements of the winged civilization and their third mothership, revealing their overwhelming confidence and disdain for humanity. In their view, this was an act of futility, as human civilization could not possibly halt their advance. What seemed like a grand offensive today was merely a desperate struggle. Incapable of even destroying their secondary mothership, they had the audacity and the arrogance to proceed. They advanced across the land, and what could humanity do to stop them? Meanwhile, a piercing cry echoed in the air, and the flashing navigation lights of fighter jets illuminated the dim night sky in clusters. An entire Air Force formation emerged from the distance, carrying 6 cloud detonation bombs, rapidly approaching the battlefield. From nearly 2 kilometers away, they launched at high speed, sending a chilling roar. Cloud detonation bombs concealed. However, none of the 6 bombs managed to hit their target. The front hatch of the secondary mothership opened, and a multitude of cylindrical aircraft surged out. 6 of these aircraft, in a display of fearless determination, charged toward the 6 cloud detonation bombs. Their speed was astonishing, and as a suicide attack, the remote operators had not even issued an evasion command before the bombs were detonated in midair one after another. The terrifying vacuum bombs erupted high above, creating a whirlwind of furious winds, with temperatures soaring like a rocket and the very space at high altitude warped. The forces under Xiang Yongxi were also thrown into disarray. His command vehicle was nearly overturned, but his first order upon regaining composure was to continue advancing, coordinating with the Air Force, and fighting to the death. Meanwhile, the massive secondary mothership emerged menacingly from the inferno. This is your last chance to surrender. This is your surrender. Suddenly, their arrogant voices fell silent. Among the human ground forces, a thunderous roar erupted from behind, like a tsunami. It has been sunk. It has been sunk. What has been sunk? ISNT, the secondary mothership, right here? Xiang Yongxi was shaken to the core, his mind hazy, until the voice of the battlefield commander, Gao Xian, crackled over their communication channel, suppressing his excitement. We have successfully sunk the 3rd mothership of the Styrium civilization. All forces on site, please focus on the secondary mothership. Today, we will ensure it cannot return. Everyone was in shock. With 2 military bases and 2 main divisions mobilized to encircle the secondary mothership, creating such a commotion, how was it possible that the 3rd mothership had been sunk without any of their forces engaging in battle? Just moments ago, the secondary mothership of the Styrium civilization had arrogantly claimed that their 3rd mothership was on its way. Yet now, how could it have been destroyed? What on earth happened? Who sank it? Elation and astonishment surged in everyone's minds, but the charge had already been sounded. The morale of the human military soared, and they surged forward, firing at will. However, the secondary mothership's movements had come to a halt. Inside the command center of the secondary mothership, the diminutive beings of the Styrium civilization were already in a state of panic, because just moments ago, they had also confirmed the news of their 3rd mothership being sunk. But how could this be possible? The 3rd mothership set off from the ruins of Kyoto, encountering no resistance from any military forces along the way. Just seconds ago, it was still in communication with the command center of the 2nd mothership, using electronic systems to pinpoint its real-time location and rapidly approaching, with the intention of capturing these overconfident humans. However, now the 3rd mothership has vanished from their electronic tracking system. There is only one possibility. It has been destroyed. Moreover, before its destruction, the last signal sent from the 3rd mothership finally struggled through the interference caused by the cloud explosion and reached the 2nd mothership. It contained a message of sheer terror. We are locked in by an unknown entity. We are under attack. Only 3 pieces of information, filled with fear, and the last one abruptly cut off. In the command center of the 2nd mothership of the civilization, the small beings of this race no longer displayed any arrogance or pride. Their earlier confidence in facing human civilization had vanished, replaced by profound terror. Who could it be? Who sank the 3rd mothership? The speed was astonishing, the attack completed in mere seconds. An infinite sense of dread surged from the depths of their hearts. Meanwhile, 270 kilometers away from the battlefield at the metal mine, the 3rd mothership had become a blazing torch on the ground, illuminating half the sky. Under the glow of the flames, a massive battleship of unknown size was slowly rotating its enormous body, its thrusters igniting in dazzling light, casting aside the broken ruins behind it, accelerating step by step towards the next battlefield. The scorching crimson of the main cannon's muzzle had not yet faded before it was recharged for a 2nd round. Enemy ship locked. Dynamic prediction system activated. Distance, 766 meters. Main cannon preparing. At the captain's seat, Wang Cheng's gaze was as cold as ice, looking into the distance. The trembling 2nd mothership of the civilization seemed to be within his sight. Chapter 259. That is a human battleship. 500 kilometers from Kyoto. At midnight. It was a night without stars or moon, where the sky and earth should have been dark, yet here it was as bright as day. Filled with the sounds of battle, the 2nd mothership of the civilization was slowly turning. Its massive steel body emitted a sound that shook the ground. As its densely packed heavy artillery fired in unison, repelling wave after wave of fierce attacks from the humans below. The armored forces of humanity appeared as insignificant as ants in front of this giant, showcasing a vast disparity in size. Yet at this moment, it was the life forms of the civilization that were filled with panic, while the morale of the humans surged, firmly holding back their advance. In the not-so-distant sky, clusters of black dots appeared. The civilization of the feathered people, one of the 4 great resurgent civilizations in the Kyoto region, manifested in the sky. Although they lacked advanced aircraft and fighter jets, their relatively closer distance and sheer numbers allowed them to quickly assemble in the thousands. Despite being mere flesh and blood in the air, the sight was quite spectacular. creating a strange sense of oppression. However, the beings of the Strim civilization aboard the second mothership were far from pleased. They were well aware that while the capabilities of the feathered people could hold their own against the human forces, they were no match for the current enemy. Whoever it was, the ability to silently destroy the third mothership demonstrated a level of strength far beyond that which the feathered people could counter, rendering their arrival almost ignored by the Strim civilization. In the command center of the second mothership, the leadership of the Strim civilization was drenched in cold sweat. Warning: our ship has been locked onto. Target unknown, direction. The loud alarm echoed throughout the second mothership, signaling that their airborne carrier had been targeted. Yet they were still unaware of who the enemy was, only able to confirm a general direction, precisely where the third mothership had been sunk. There was no doubt. The enemy had locked onto them from an extremely long distance. This scene felt eerily familiar, prompting many beings of the Strim civilization to recall the events of 2 days prior. Was it that unknown enemy ship? They were helping the humans. We've fallen into an ambush. Their true objective is not us, or rather, we are not their primary target. The human army and air force before us are merely a distraction. The humans used their grand display to lure our coalition, making everyone believe they aimed to destroy the second mothership, but in reality, their primary target was the third mothership, surrounding the point to strike at the aid. Damn it. They could fire at any moment. We must evade immediately. Evade now. It's coming. It's coming. The human fleet in the sky is changing course. The strike is imminent. The command center of the Strim civilization was in chaos. Though the small beings were not large in size, their temperaments mirrored the steel floating fortresses they built, volatile and irritable. In this tense situation, some could no longer contain their shouts. The operators of the second mothership urgently began evasive maneuvers. As recently discovered, the human air formation, which had been swarming around them like flies, suddenly changed direction. They moved away, urgently veering to the sides, a clear indication they were making way for a powerful strike. The direction they were clearing was precisely where the third mothership had been sunk. Even a fool could see that the attack was imminent. In the sky, countless cylindrical flying vessels of the Strim civilization rapidly ascended, following suit in their evasive maneuvers. The massive second mothership slowly turned, resembling a fierce giant on the ground, shifting its stance. The steel mechanical structure shifted amidst loud crashes and roaring sounds, while the front armor plates rose layer by layer, causing chaos in the operations center. Meanwhile, the human forces on the ground were in a state of urgency, as orders had already been transmitted from the rear. Their main forces were about to open fire in coordination with this operation. Immediately, the strike arrived in an instant. The electromagnetic railgun of the 8th level battleship could reach a speed of 15 Mach, a true God's cannon, firing from its 200mm barrel located 270 kilometers away. Accompanied by a piercing scream that tore through the air, it shot forth like a dragon's breath, sweeping across the vast plains outside Kyoto and reaching the battlefield in an instant, hitting its target. At that moment, the troops under Yongxi had just received the order and were urgently evading, though few knew what they were evading from. In the high skies, the military air formations had already pulled up in a straight line to clear airspace for the 8th level battleship. At that moment, the tubular aircraft of the Strim civilization had just begun to ascend, attempting to evade like the humans. The second mothership of the Strim civilization had just started to turn, with the outer heavy armor plates beginning to rise through the movement of gears. This additional armor structure was meant to withstand more ferocious explosive attacks, adding a thicker layer to their existing composite armor over 3 meters thick. Such layers of thick armor reflected the Strim civilization's superstitious belief in armor and steel, serving as a crucial defense system for their floating steel city. Strong kinetic energy, heavy firepower, and thick armor defenses transformed their mothership into an aerial menace, rather than a fragile fighter jet that could be easily destroyed by a missile. Unfortunately, the responses from the Strim civilization came a step too late. The strike was too swift. The 8th level battleship that fired it was still over 200 kilometers away, and the Strim mothership lacked the capability to accurately confirm the position of the Royal City battleship, making it impossible to predict in advance. By the time they realized the impending disaster from the human reaction, it was already too late. The tubular aircraft at the front had not yet managed to withdraw to a safe distance when it was smashed by the projectile. Indeed, it was smashed. That strike felt like a strongman's iron fist, easily shattering a layer of glass, and could effortlessly penetrate the tubular aircraft of the human-armed helicopters, which appeared as fragile as glass before it. The front of the pierced tubular aircraft was like a mosquito standing in front of an elephant, only delaying the electromagnetic railgun by a few milliseconds. Moments later, it thunderously hit its target. At that moment, the human soldiers on the ground heard a tremendous roar akin to a mountain collapsing. Not far away, a massive fireball erupted from the second mothership of the Strim civilization. In the high skies, numerous biological entities from the Feathered People civilization panicked and began to ascend. A world-ending scene is unfolding among the crumbling mountains, as the massive mothership of the Strom civilization is breached from the front. The thick armor appears as fragile as paper before the electromagnetic railgun. And amidst the rolling smoke and flames, half of its structure has turned to ruins. The main cannon at the center is ablaze, having been penetrated by a single strike. In that direction, the internal structures are continuously collapsing, flames swirling around. The once proud and invincible second mothership of the Strom civilization has been destroyed in an instant. The enormous aerial fortress uncontrollably tilting and sinking to one side. Inside the command center of the Strom civilization, chaos reigns. Half of the command center has been sheared off, with fire everywhere and huge uneven cracks appearing on the ground. From here, the massive done man of the mothership is clearly visible, with the hit left half collapsing in levels like an earthquake. Many of the biological entities within the combat centers of the Strom civilization have already been pulled out, while the remaining personnel are desperately operating the massive mothership, trying to stabilize the tilting of the second mothership. Meanwhile, their shattered systems have finally determined the general direction of the enemy. Panic-stricken screams echo in the command center of the second mothership, which is exploding everywhere. Enemy ship position locked. It's 210 kilometers away and approaching at high speed. How can it be so fast? They've deactivated their camouflage and are still closing in. 200 kilometers, 190 kilometers. Their speed is too fast. The real aerial ship. Fire. Fire. The commander of the second mothership is still alive, half of his body trapped under a collapsed device. Others are frantically trying to rescue him, but he glares fiercely, roaring orders as if completely unconcerned about his dangerous situation, determined to take down the attacking enemies. The massive second mothership slowly turns. Although its left half has already crumbled to dust, with large metal debris and mixed structures falling into the flames, the remaining right half is still operational. And the nuclear power system is also functioning. Therefore, they still have a chance to fire. Heavy artillery in the right half rises. Their heavy muzzles no longer aimed at human forces, but directed toward the distant sky, firing madly in a cacophony of cannon fire. On the ground, countless humans are changing formations, astonished at the scene, especially as they gaze towards the direction where the wreckage of the second mothership is attacking. There seems to be nothing over there. No, not nothing. They are approaching at high speed. The sound of sonic booms tearing through the night sky resonates across the expanse, as the soldiers on site stare in disbelief at what unfolds before them. A dark, cold, colossal warship is rushing in at high speed from the far sky, its front rising with a honeycomb-like shield system, intercepting all the firepower launched from the right half of the second mothership before the shields. The enormous warship's speed breaks several times the speed of sound, advancing like a deity, charging at high speed from 200 kilometers away. The warship sparkles with light as two turbine laser cannons fire fiercely, and two missile launch systems lock onto the numerous tubular flying vehicles in the air, with missiles rising like raindrops from the wings of the warship. It does not attack humans. Its targets are all those cylindrical aircraft and the winged beings. It enters the battlefield with absolute posture, soaring overhead, speeding through the human fighter jets, and fiercely attacking all revived civilization creatures on the battlefield except for humans. From the 8th level battleship, the voice of the royal city resounded across the metallic mining battlefield. I am a human battleship, and I regret to announce that you have no chance of surrender. The main cannon of the battleship lit up with a crimson flash. On the battlefield, both humans and revived civilization creatures were in shock, because that was indeed a human battleship. Chapter 260. Overlooking the battlefield, the sky had long been illuminated by explosions, casting a crimson hue, with thick smoke rising and merging with the shadows that obscured the stars and moon, deepening the gloom overhead. It was hard to tell if it was an illusion, but within that heavy haze, it seemed that a shadow was moving, only to suddenly disappear. On the ground, the royal city's battleship pierced through the air. It specifically lowered its altitude, rapidly descending from nearly 10,000 meters to the battlefield area, flying at the same height as the mountains, weaving through the fighter jets. The purpose was to intimidate the battlefield. Whether it was the winged beings or the creatures of the Strom civilization, they were all horrified. They could hardly believe that this immensely powerful dark battleship came from the human camp. How could this be possible? In the command center of the Strom 2 mothership, the short commander was finally rescued. It limped on one leg, its body mostly stained red with blood. Yet it seemed completely oblivious to its condition as it stumbled toward the edge of the shattered command center, from where it could directly see the 8th level battleship looming in the sky outside. Its face was filled with shock. That battleship was dark and powerful. Both its previously displayed optical stealth technology and the frontal energy shield system used to withstand their firepower were advanced technologies that the Strom civilization had been pursuing without success. Moreover, the comprehensive performance it had just demonstrated was astonishing. How could humans possibly possess such a formidable interstellar battleship? Their technology could not achieve this. They only had the advantage of being the first to strike. How could this be possible? This was impossible. Countless creatures of the Strem civilization shared the same astonishment. In such a short time, their prideful third mothership had been destroyed. The second mothership was at its last gasp, while their opponent was cold and powerful. Leaping into the battlefield, even telling them that the ones who had crushed them were precisely the human civilization they had just scorned. In the sky, the winged being civilization was even more horrified. They had just entered the battlefield and were immediately starting to retreat. What a joke! This battleship was too powerful. The third mothership of the Strime has been destroyed, and now the second mothership has also been rendered inoperable. Under the suppression of this human mothership, destruction is merely a matter of time. Today's battle is a foregone conclusion. Although the Uran civilization has a considerable population, their relationship with the Strime civilization is merely one of cooperation. They side with whoever is stronger. With the current situation changing, they cannot afford to accompany the beings of the Strime civilization to their demise. It is wise for them to retreat before becoming too deeply involved in the battlefield. As they pull back in the air, they keep a close watch on the massive dark spacecraft that claims to be a human battleship, their faces filled with disbelief. They remember the scene of the four great revived civilizations flattening the survivor base in the capital, where countless humans wailed in despair and struggled. Their defenses crumbled before the mothership of the Strime civilization like a fragile wooden fence, crushed by the advancing vessel. Wherever the heavy steel floating city passed, destruction flickered everywhere for humanity. They were unable to stop the advance of the Strime civilization, whose mothership, built on distorted technology, rampaged across the battlefield like a wild buffalo. In direct close-quarters combat, humanity had no means to counter it, and large-scale weapons of mass destruction could not be deployed in the chaos of battle. They could only watch as it swept across the battlefield like a deity. Now, however, such a massive weapon seemed as fragile as paper before this human battleship. Just moments ago, the human battleship had not even revealed itself, yet from an unknown distance, it had already blown apart half of the second mothership. The Uran were shocked at where humanity had obtained such a formidable warship, but they knew what they had to do. The cooperation among the four revived civilizations was for mutual benefit. Apart from that, there was nothing else. Therefore, seeing the Strime civilization on the brink of defeat and the human battleship gaining the upper hand, they made the wise choice to scatter and flee. However, humanity was not prepared to let them go. The military's Air Force units took off instantly, changing direction to pursue them. Meanwhile, from the 8th level battleship in the Royal City, the rear hatches opened, releasing 3 Eagle Falcon aircraft from within the battleship. Chen Jigua personally led the charge, bringing the 3 Eagle Falcons to join forces with the military's air units, aggressively hunting down the fleeing Uran civilization. The strength of the Uran revived civilization was already inferior to that of other civilizations. In a direct confrontation, they were far from being humanity's match. Their special awakening ability held little significance in aerial combat, where agile fighter jets and powerful firepower could easily break through their front lines. Moreover, at this moment, the Uran were in a state of utter panic, overwhelmed by fear, desperately trying to escape, leaving them with little capacity to resist. They were relentlessly pursued by humanity's air force, resulting in a one-sided slaughter. Chen Jigua was exhilarated. This is a massacre, live targets. Training doesn't get better than this. Meanwhile, on the second Eagle Falcon aircraft, Li Fengzhan shouted, "Boss, let's get them. These damn foreign civilizations. Let's wipe them out." At this moment, Chen Jigua suddenly felt something strange. He glanced to the side and saw a military fighter jet flying alongside him, with a pilot from the human military looking at him with a peculiar gaze. That look carried a hint of respect, yet it also resembled the wonder one might feel when observing extraordinary creatures in a zoo. In response, Chen Jigua merely smiled slightly and gave a rather unstandard military salute from his hawk-like aircraft. The soldier suddenly paused and promptly returned a salute to Chen Jigua, his eyes even shimmering with excitement. It wasn't just him. When the flagship of the capital arrived on the battlefield, many were astonished. However, with the enemy still unclear, everyone remained vigilant until the flagship declared its identity, simultaneously retaliating coldly against the previous surrender announcement from the foreign civilization. At that moment, everyone became exhilarated. Moreover, soon, messages from various command centers spread across the three armies through their communication channels. Identity confirmed. That is our flagship. Excited and ecstatic shouts echoed on the battlefield. No one knew that just moments ago, they had been trampled by the enemy and had listened to the foreign civilization arrogantly urging them to surrender. The deep sense of helplessness and anger they felt, the intense desire to crush these foreign civilizations, the hatred for the fall of their survivor base, and the shame of today's bloodshed all found fulfillment in that moment. and they even had their own warships. It turned out that this was the force they were to coordinate with. Their warships, before their human warships. The flagship of the foreign civilization looked like a heap of scrap metal. The news of the sinking of the third flagship had already spread, and now, the second flagship was nearly incapacitated by a single shot from an extreme distance. Their warships, dark and cold, displayed visible perfection and power. Even those who knew nothing could instantly discern who was strong and who was weak. Countless soldiers were filled with excitement, because this day had finally arrived. They could hold their heads high and make these foreign civilizations pay the price. In their own positions, Xiang Yongxi was also looking up at the massive, dark warship. Still somewhat dazed. He had had a vague suspicion before, but he never expected that it was truly theirs. Their warship. However, Xiang Yongxi still felt a bit incredulous. How could this be possible? As a soldier from a military background, he was well aware of the Federation's military capabilities. How could there be such a level of aerial warship? Optical invisibility, shield systems, and such a large warship. How could it achieve such high speed? Every technology displayed here was something the current Federation did not possess. Some of these, like the shield system, even existed only in the realm of imagined black technology for the Federation. Even those revived civilization beings could only look up to such black technology. And now, a warship that seemed impossible to exist and belonged to humanity appeared here, advancing boldly and crushing the foreign civilization with disdain on the battlefield. The adjutant beside Xiang Yongxi was trembling with excitement. That is indeed our warship, without a doubt. 2 days ago, we encountered an unknown entity while on a mission outside Kyoto. It must be them. At that time, they only attacked the cylindrical aircraft of the Strime civilization and did not target us. It turns out they are on our side. They are with us. Meanwhile, at Military Base 6, the command center was in an uproar. In the back of the crowd, Gao Xian watched the cold warship displayed from multiple angles on the screen. His expression unchanged. He had long known about the existence of this warship, but although he showed no outward signs, he was equally shocked inside. This was also the first time he had seen this elusive ship. Previously, he had only communicated through channels established by the top commander and did not know the specific location and posture of the other side's ship. He had imagined what it might look like, but now, seeing it in front of him, he realized he had underestimated it. He knew very little about the origins of this dark warship and did not even know where it came from. Only that it had initially contacted the highest commander of the Federal Huaxia District at Base 1. Today's plan was jointly developed by the military and the commander of this warship. Initially, Gao Xian and other military personnel suggested a blitz strategy to swiftly capture the Strime civilization's second mothership and then quickly withdraw to plan for the long term. However, the commander of the unknown warship proposed a surprising and confident plan, openly attacking the second mothership, but actually surrounding and defeating the third mothership first, then taking down the second mothership, effectively crippling 2 Strime civilizations in one go. This plan initially shocked many, including Gao Xian, as they knew how formidable the mothership of the Strime civilization was. It was a true steel fortress with astonishing defenses and firepower. To take down 2 motherships in one operation over hundreds of kilometers, they even thought nuclear weapons might be necessary. After intense debate for a day, it was ultimately the top commander who decided to adopt the plan proposed by the commander of the unknown warship, as the latter had a reputation and was not planning to use nuclear weapons, thus avoiding regional contamination while confidently capturing both Strime civilization motherships. This left many astonished. Gao Xian knew that many experienced officers, such as Commander Yang Zheng from Military Base 3, who was also involved in the operation, expressed deep concerns. He believed that recklessly attacking both motherships could indeed lead to a significant victory and potentially cripple the Strime civilization, but if things went wrong, it could result in total failure. Humanity's current strength had already been significantly weakened, and they could not afford losses. It was only under the insistence of the highest commander of the Federal Huaxia District that this risky plan was ultimately implemented. Now, the results undoubtedly left everyone speechless in shock. Gao Xian finally understood that the confidence of the commander of this warship stemmed from their formidable strength. He even received a communication from his old friend Yang Zheng immediately. The commander of the 3rd military base, who had previously vehemently opposed the risky plan here, exclaimed, "Old Gao, did you see that? I can hardly believe it's our people who did this. They really accomplished it, 200 kilometers in a dash, destroying the mothership in under 2 minutes. And now they've taken down the second mothership. It's incredible. Did you see? Do you understand? The situation in Kyoto is about to change dramatically. We won't have to hide anymore. But who exactly are these powerful spaceships from? I've served in the military for many years. How come I didn't know there were such top-tier weapons in our ranks?" Gao Xian shared the same feelings of astonishment and doubt, but he knew this was not something he should be concerned about. What they needed to do next was to clear the battlefield, take advantage of the momentum, and eliminate the alien civilization, leaving no one behind. Chapter 261. Kinetic weapons at the 3rd Military Base. Yang Zheng stood tall like a pine tree, his gaze fixed intently on the battlefield. Though he was elderly, his eyes still sparkled with vitality, as if he longed to be part of the majestic and proud battlefield. At this moment, the situation on the battlefield had turned. The feathered beings and cylindrical flying vehicles were entangled with the human fighter jets, while on the ground, the military forces began to shift their offensive, counterattacking the ground-dwelling creatures that had initially intended to surround them alongside other recovering civilizations. On the front lines, the second mothership of the Strem civilization had sunk to a lower altitude, but it had not completely ceased operations. As a brutal technological marvel of the Strem civilization, it possessed a multi-tiered system. Even though half of it had turned into a sea of fire, the remaining half was still operational. The Strem civilization thrived in a world that was both savage and advanced. The diminutive Strem beings were, in their time, the weakest of creatures. They were too small in size. Though they were aggressive and warlike, they could not match the giant civilizations that once opposed them. The Strem civilization had always yearned for greater size and the might of thunderous blows, to defeat other beings and to propagate their civilization on this planet. They finally nurtured the seeds of technology. However, their technology was also warped. They did not have the same opportunities as humans in their era. They were not the only intelligent race, and thus, from the outset, their technology was born to defeat enemies and to gain greater size and power. Therefore, all their technological advancements were focused on warfare, aimed at overcoming formidable opponents. As a result, the motherships they constructed were massive like mountains, with a dense array of heavy artillery lining the decks. Moreover, they left little space for medical or resting areas within the mothership. Every structure, inside and out, existed solely for war. Their great designers created multi-layered combat units for the mothership, ensuring that even if parts were damaged, the remaining sections could still operate and exhibit formidable combat power until the entire mothership turned to scrap metal. At this moment, the second mothership was still struggling, its cannons firing fiercely into the sky. Yet within the command center, the Strem civilization's commander was already pale-faced. The warning sirens sounded once again. This time, there was no need to search for the enemy ships, as they were right in front of them. The main guns lit up. The armor of the Level 8 battleship slowly rose, and the 200mm main gun was aimed directly at them. No, aiming was unnecessary. Once prepared, a single shot could send them to the skies. In the combat center, the expression of the commander from the Strem civilization momentarily froze. Once, it was their iron fortresses that crushed others, like when they attacked the human survivors' base in Kyoto, relying on the barbarity and violence of their second mothership to smash through human defenses. Now, that scene seemed poised to repeat itself, only with the roles reversed. It was the human battleship delivering the firepower, and all of their firepower was completely thwarted by the energy shield system of the human battleship. Commander, our secondary armor shield is offline. There's no time to manually raise the shields. A Strem civilization being shouted in despair. The small commander of the Strem civilization struggled to drag his body up to the high combat operations platform, ensuring all his compatriots could see him. In that moment, he suddenly recalled the distant history of his civilization. In the past, they had battled against towering giant civilizations, and the castles they painstakingly built were easily trampled by the giants. Now, he felt the despair and sorrow of his ancestors. It was an absolute crushing defeat. That scene was playing out again. The human battleship destroyed their second mothership's only main gun capable of countering the enemy with a single strike, leaving them with no means to survive this calamity. The commander understood that if they were defeated today, the humans would not spare their civilization. In this struggle between civilizations, no civilization could extricate itself. Either they slaughtered others or were slaughtered themselves. They could not perish like this. The commander roared, "Accelerate! Accelerate! We have technology to collide with them carrying a nuclear reactor. Humans cannot possess this. This ship may have come from their accidental acquisition. As long as we destroy them, these humans will never be able to produce a second one. Accelerate! Accelerate! Crash into them. Detonate the nuclear reactor and blow these humans to the sky. Only by destroying them can our first mothership be safe, can our civilization continue, and can our species become the ultimate winners of this era. We are the masters of this planet. We are the favored ones of this age. We are the most powerful intelligent beings." On the ground, the second mothership moved forward aggressively, with part of its structure even sinking into the ground. It continued to move forward in a suicidal attack, its massive body rushing towards the battleship of the Royal City. But in the Level 8 battleship's bridge, the Royal City's expression remained unyielding as he had already discerned the Strem civilization's desperate struggle at first glance. Moreover, he knew their struggle was futile. He would not give them a chance to self-destruct. There was only one path to death. Main gun ready, in front of the flagship. The main cannon launch button had already risen. Inside the bridge, Su Xinghai looked at the second mothership charging at them recklessly and sighed. This is the last struggle of a civilization. Then, the flagship pressed the launch button. The main cannon had locked onto the critical structure of the second mothership. With this shot, they would have no chance to detonate their mothership's nuclear reactor. The entire mothership would be completely sunk. The outcome was certain. The main cannon soared into the sky, and the second mothership disintegrated in a magnificent flash. The massive metal mothership shattered, collapsing like a floating steel temple, sinking downwards. Its wreckage covering the ground and clouds of dust rising. Its final impact, the last struggle of the commander of the Strim civilization, was in vain. The flagship offered them no chance, delivering the final blow and slowly gaining altitude. Inside the bridge, various units performed their duties, coordinating with the ship's operations. As the turbine laser cannons and other weapons continued to fire, targeting the cylindrical aircraft remaining in the air. However, as the pride and powerful mothership of their civilization was easily destroyed in front of them, the pilots in those cylindrical aircraft were nearly in a state of collapse, unable to pose any further threat. Meanwhile, the military forces on the ground quickly took action. Under the enormous shadow cast by the Level 8 warship, groups of troops advanced rapidly under the guidance of the military command center, daring to enter the ruins of the second mothership, eliminating any surviving individuals of the Strim civilization, and ensuring that the nuclear reactor would not be detonated. The troops of Yongxi were also among them. As he advanced, he couldn't help but gaze at the colossal object above him, feeling an indescribable sense of surprise and excitement. Just 2 shots, only 2 shots, had destroyed the once mighty second mothership of the Strim civilization. The wreckage scattered on the ground seemed to mock the Strim civilization's recent arrogance. They moved swiftly, delving deeper into the ruins. But at that moment, the flagship that had been ascending suddenly halted. A crimson warning flashed on the central holographic screen of the ship. Warning. Our ship has been locked on. Target location. Warning. Warning. Consecutive alerts appeared, confirming an enemy ship at an altitude of 20,000 meters above them. From the images obtained by the warship, a ship without outer armor emerged from invisibility at that height, revealing a strange launch device and preparing for some kind of strike, having locked onto the flagship. The moment its existence was confirmed, the warnings on the ship intensified. Scanning target ship failed, unable to penetrate electromagnetic defense net, confirming enemy ship's main weapon. Our ship has been locked by the enemy ship's main weapon. Enemy ship's main weapon suspected to be kinetic weapon or high-power beam weapon. Output power estimated based on exit speed predicts impact kinetic energy. Warning. Enemy ship's main weapon exceeds our ship's armor and shield system defense limits. Captain, please evade urgently. It was a ship of the Chio Mountain civilization. It was a kinetic weapon. Quickly calculate the evasive route. Just as everyone on the battleship let out a sigh of relief, their expressions changed in an instant. Su Xinghai immediately utilized the battleship's supercomputer for extensive calculations. While Wang Cheng had already begun to move, there was no doubt about it. The unarmored flat spacecraft matched the information regarding the Tsushan civilization's vehicles provided by the military of the capital. Moreover, there had been precedents of kinetic weapons being used during the battle for the survivor base in the capital. A kinetic weapon had fallen, causing the central area of the survivor base to collapse entirely, and the resulting earthquake had directly destroyed the human defense network in the entire capital region, enabling the forces of the Strim civilization, the Feather People civilization, and the Earth-dwelling civilization to advance unimpeded. The defense system in the capital had been destroyed by 60% due to the kinetic weapon strike. If not for this, the so-called impregnable survivor base of the capital could not have been easily breached. It now appeared that the battleship Wang Cheng had locked onto during his standoff with the mothership in the capital was likely this Tsushan civilization's ship. However, at that time, neither side had opened fire, and there was no way to accurately confirm each other's positions. Whoever fired first would expose themselves to enemy attack. Now, Wang Cheng had taken the initiative to fire at the Strim civilization's mothership, allowing them to accurately lock onto Wang Cheng as well. With the first strike, the kinetic weapon was already primed. Based on the currently estimated power of the kinetic weapon, if it hit, even an 8th-level battleship would be directly destroyed, turning into a brilliant firework in the sky. Not only that, it would also fall to the ground, overwhelming the 2 divisions of human forces below in the shockwave of the earthquake and kinetic weapon. Chapter 262, Life and Death Pursuit. Damn it, is it coming this fast? Wang Cheng had anticipated that the Tsushan civilization would come, but he didn't expect them to arrive so quickly and stealthily. He had rushed 200 kilometers, taking less than half an hour to deal with 2 Strim civilization motherships. His speed was certainly not slow. He aimed not only to catch those 2 motherships off guard, but also to guard against the potential arrival of the Tsushan civilization. According to the information provided by the capital, the technology of this civilization was peculiar, and their spacecraft was strange as well. The kinetic weapons they used could pose a significant threat to his 8th-level battleship. Therefore, from the moment he arrived until now, Wang Cheng had remained vigilant, constantly accelerating the progress of today's battle. In his view, the best-case scenario would be to eliminate the 2 Strim civilization motherships with a thunderous strike, and then confront the Tsushan civilization's battleship, defeating them one by one. If he could crush the main force of these 2 powerful revived civilizations in the capital today, the subsequent battles in the capital would be much easier, potentially resolving the issues at hand. However, he was still a step too slow, and the stealth technology of the Tsushan civilization was clearly on par with Wang Cheng's 8th-level battleship. Despite his continuous celestial scanning, he had not detected the opponent until this moment when they revealed themselves and accurately locked onto his battleship. Su Xinghai was coordinating with the supercomputer to calculate the trajectory, but Wang Cheng had already turned the battleship at the first opportunity, preparing to accelerate. He knew that, no matter what, he could not face kinetic weapons here. Otherwise, the 2 divisions of human troops beneath his feet would suffer a devastating blow. The shock and explosion caused by the kinetic weapon's impact with the ground were already terrifying. If it penetrated further and triggered an earthquake, it would completely engulf all human forces in this area, especially since this was a mining site. The underground had long been hollowed out, and after the recent battle, it had been severely damaged, making the ground extremely fragile and unable to withstand the tremendous impact of kinetic weapons. However, there was still a chance for the capital. They had detected the ships of the Chiu Mountain civilization early enough that the enemy had locked onto them just as they were discovered. There was still an opportunity to move. Even if the enemy had locked onto them, they would have to recalculate their trajectory. Indeed, the technological gap was not too great. Although the enemy had come stealthily, they had still been exposed and discovered early. Otherwise, if they had been detected only after the kinetic weapons were launched, it would have been a dead end, and there would have been no way to evade it. There was still a chance. As long as they moved, it would not be a dead end. If they could dodge this strike and neutralize the enemy's initial advantage, given the similar technological capabilities on both sides, they would surely be able to launch a counterattack. The massive level 8 battleship was accelerating, but as the capital moved, the flat-shaped ships of the Chiu Mountain civilization above also began to act. They could almost achieve synchronized movement with the capital's battleship, moving at incredible speed side by side. While the kinetic weapon had locked onto the capital's battleship, even the military had not detected the presence of the Chiu Mountain civilization in time. Although they had exited optical stealth, they were still hidden from electronic detection, located high above the clouds, and were outside the blind spots of the military, whose satellite detection systems were mostly offline. In Military Base 6, Gao Xian furrowed his brow deeply. What were they avoiding? Yang Zheng, who was connected to command, spoke in a deep voice. It must be the Chiu Mountain civilization. With such a commotion, they had undoubtedly arrived. But where were they? Immediately send out more unmanned reconnaissance aircraft to assist our battleships. The Chiu Mountain civilization must be preparing kinetic weapons. Our battleships are in rapid motion and are under great threat. We must protect this battleship. The Air Force on site must act immediately, and the ground troops should stop their engagements with the ground species, fully cooperating with our battleships to draw their fire. Even if we have to sacrifice these 2 divisions, we must protect our battleship. Yang Zheng's eyes turned blood red. In this battle, he clearly saw the power of the capital's battleship, and for that, he was even willing to sacrifice tens of thousands of their ground troops. The operations center of Gao Xian attempted to call the capital for information, but at that moment, the capital was too busy to respond. Their battleship had been locked onto. He judged that the enemy's kinetic weapons were ready, but the capital's level 8 battleship was in high-speed operation, which was why it had not fired yet. It was waiting for a perfect opportunity to strike from above and send the capital and its battleship to the skies. Fire! Fire! Interfere with them. Xu Bing let out a sharp shout, her voice icy. At an altitude of 20,000 meters, she fired at the sky using the auxiliary targeting system. Empowered by irregular energy crystals, she didn't have to worry about ammunition consumption. Concentrated energy beams shot upwards. At the same time, 2 sets of missile launch silos on either side of the warship erupted with flames, launching 32 missiles that trailed long tails of fire towards the sky. Give me time. I'm still calculating. They're very advanced. Our supercomputer needs time to establish the mathematical model and simulate all possible evasive maneuvers. Cold sweat streamed down Su Xinghai's forehead. On the computer in front of him, massive amounts of data were scrolling, and he was manually reallocating the warship's computational resources to accelerate the calculations for evasive routes. With the level 8 warship equipped with an intelligence system and a supercomputer, otherwise, they would be in an absolutely passive position right now. This level of pursuit and evasion was beyond what the human brain could analyze and react to. At this moment, the warship had accelerated to 3 Mach. Wang Cheng's gaze was fixed on the holographic screen before him. In the image, the enemy ship from the Chiu Mountain civilization was keeping pace with them. He accelerated to 3 Mach, and the enemy did the same, cold and silent. The two warships were flying at different altitudes, one at 1,000 meters above ground and the other at 20,000 meters, racing against time, facing the intense firepower projected by Wang Cheng. The Chiao Mountain Civilization's aircraft continued to gain altitude, and the warship's warning alarms grew increasingly urgent. As the altitude increased, the calculated data for their kinetic weaponry rose again. The impact force of the enemy's kinetic weapons had increased to 120%, yet Wang Cheng continued to advance. This was the most dangerous situation since the warship's upgrade. A single shell could destroy the entire warship. The energy threshold of the enemy's kinetic weapons had already surpassed the warship's defensive limits. Even the Level 8 warship's 52 square shield system could not withstand it. If hit, the entire warship would explode in the air like fireworks, and not only would the ship be obliterated, but everyone on the bridge would fall along with it, brutally killed. Although the Chiao Mountain Civilization's warship was not as large as the flagship of the Strime Civilization, its performance was far superior, truly capable of matching a Level 8 warship. In their era, the technology they developed had far surpassed that of contemporary humanity. They were incredibly powerful. If not for their limited numbers, their technological strength alone could easily wipe out the human forces in Kyoto and the other 3 major revived civilizations. They had taken the initiative and gained the upper hand, and Wang Cheng currently had no angle for a counterattack. He could only fly with all his might and evade. However, he also understood that this blow was unavoidable. Death was certain. But once this strike was over, the initiative advantage that the Chiao Mountain Civilization had secretly moved into would be exhausted. At that point, he would launch a desperate counterattack. The strengths of both warships were comparable. As long as he could retaliate, Wang Cheng was confident he could shoot it down. Of course, the prerequisite was to first deplete the enemy's initiative advantage and evade this kinetic weapon. Cold sweat continued to drip down from his forehead. Wang Cheng was diligently adjusting the direction of the battleship, coordinating with the intelligent assistance system, and moving according to several routes calculated by the supercomputer used by Su Xinghai. His heart was nearly in his throat as the cold battleship faced off against the enemy in the sky, engaged in a deadly race against time. Not only were they firing, but the Chiao Civilization above was also launching missile-like weapons, intertwining their firepower with that of Wang Cheng's Level 8 battleship in the sky. However, their kinetic weapons had not fired yet, as Wang Cheng's battleship was constantly on the move, following an evasion route. Each time Su Xinghai calculated a highly feasible evasion direction, Wang Cheng would immediately shift in that direction. In high-speed maneuvers, the Chiao Civilization's kinetic weapons needed extensive calculations to hit their target, as Wang Cheng had to determine the route to evade their kinetic weapons while continuously adjusting the battleship's course. And they too had to calculate Wang Cheng's flight path and adjust their targeting accordingly. The Chiao Civilization clearly understood they had only one chance to fire. They were astonished by the strength of Wang Cheng's battleship and the technological advantages it displayed. If it had been any other civilization spacecraft, even the flagship of the Citrium Civilization, they would not have been able to detect the attack in time. By the time they realized it, the kinetic weapons would have already been launched, and at the ultra-high speeds of kinetic weapons, there would be no chance to evade once they were released in the vacuum of space. However, this human battleship had detected their approach in advance, and before the enemy's kinetic weapons were ready, Wang Cheng had already begun to maneuver evasively. This left the Chiao Civilization, who were preparing for a sneak attack, in shock. The powerful computational capability demonstrated by this human battleship was on par with their supercomputer, which further heightened their alarm. This human battleship was nearly at the same technological level as theirs, and in terms of firepower and defense, it even surpassed them. No wonder 2 Citrium Civilization motherships were destroyed effortlessly. The two sides were simply not on the same power scale. Thus, the Chiao Civilization was even more determined to shoot down this human battleship. This posed a significant threat. At the same time, they knew that this strike must hit. Otherwise, given the performance and strength displayed by this human battleship, if they missed this shot, the chances of destroying the enemy would plummet, and they could potentially be destroyed in return. That was a result they definitely did not want to see. Therefore, within Wang Cheng's Level 8 battleship, calculations were being frantically made, and the Chiao Civilization was also engaging in high-speed computations at all costs, attempting to predict Wang Cheng's flight trajectory for a successful strike. 2 battleships, 2 civilizations. Both Wang Cheng and the Chiao Civilization knew that the moment the kinetic weapons fired would determine the fate of today's battle. At that moment, the 2 battleships had flown nearly 100 kilometers, and the military had just located the position of the Chiao Civilization spacecraft. Astonished to find that they were in the sky at an altitude of 25,000 meters, Yang Zheng and Gao Xian were both shocked. The deadly battle before them was escalating. Chapter 263, Shooting Towards the Sky. On the dimly lit ground, the warship was racing forward. as the Chushan civilization's warship ascended to an altitude of 26,000 meters. This was a region with thin air, and from this vantage point looking into space, one could see the twinkling stars against the dark backdrop of the universe. Below it, at an altitude of 24,000 meters, an 8th-level warship was advancing. This technological chase had been ongoing for nearly 5 minutes. The earlier battlefield of the metal mines had long been left far behind, disappearing from view. Surrounding them was an endless expanse of deathly plains. The sonic booms created by the warship slicing through the air caused even 5th-level mutated creatures to panic and flee, as if they were facing some divine being. The overcast clouds above had also been shredded by the chaotic strikes. 2 warships engaged in combat from a height of over 10,000 meters apart, with the dense lines of fire appearing sparse at such a distance. Observed from afar, they resembled meteors streaking through the sky. However, changes were also taking place. The beings of the Chushan civilization were slender life forms that resembled 2-dimensional creatures. Their bodies perfectly integrated with their flat-like spaceships. They could merge with the ship's computational systems, becoming part of their own vessels. They were part of the ship, serving as its armor, brain, and weapons. They were born in an era that was peaceful and suitable for their survival. In their time, like humans, they had almost no natural enemies and did not face other intelligent civilizations like the Stream civilization. They thrived on Earth during that era, developing cultures and technologies that even surpassed contemporary humans. They even modified their bodies, merging their life forms with the crystallization of their technology and culture. This warship represented the pinnacle of their technological achievements. Unlike humans, they did not need to communicate through language. Each individual stood on their warship like external hardware connected to a computer, quickly exchanging information within the ship through the flat vessel. Through this biological network, they could exponentially enhance their warship's computational abilities. Just recently, in the battle against the human warship below, more than half of their individuals voluntarily abandoned their original positions within the ship to join the computational array, connecting themselves as external hardware to the flat warship, thereby boosting its computational power. Even now, individuals continue to willingly forsake their own tasks, with only those maintaining the fire control and navigation systems remaining at their posts. Everyone else joined in the computations, attempting to predict the movements of the human warship and then striking it with kinetic weapons. They communicated within the information world at speeds unimaginable to humans. The target human battleship has changed its movement pattern for the 77th time, completely altering its computational direction to reevaluate its flight trajectory. 80% of our crew has joined the calculation matrix, and the computational power of our battleship matrix has doubled. Theoretically, we have surpassed the computational limit of that human battleship. They do not possess a method to instantly enhance their computing ability like we do. Based on the current situation, after the target human battleship's 83rd course change, we will have a guaranteed opportunity to strike. We must proceed with caution. This human battleship is peculiar and equipped with an energy shield system that even we have not mastered. After a long journey to conceal our presence, we have finally gained the initiative. This is our only chance for a guaranteed victory. If this strike does not hit, we will face a fierce counterattack from the human battleship, making it exceedingly difficult to destroy it afterward. This is technology beyond human capability. It surely belongs to some powerful revived civilization's battleship. First, we must destroy it and concentrate our computational power to analyze its movement patterns. The target human battleship has begun its 78th movement pattern change, and their computational power is about to reach its limit. The target human battleship has changed its course for the 79th time. Our ship's port side has been hit by an enemy energy weapon, immediately separating the maintenance unit. We detected that a human precision-guided missile has locked onto us. We attempted to intercept, but the first interception failed, and the second interception also failed due to the overwhelming number of missiles. We stopped the interception and concentrated our computational power. The target human battleship has started its 81st movement pattern change. We ceased interception and activated the electromagnetic shield. All personnel in the fire control unit joined the calculation array. These human missiles cannot destroy us. We must eliminate this human battleship, as it has the capability to annihilate us. This is a rare opportunity. We are about to exhaust its algorithm. One strike to destroy it, and the entire Kyoto region will be unable to withstand our battleship. The sky is being pierced by flames. In the Kyoto region, military bases 2, 3, 5, and 6, disregarding the risk of exposing their positions, simultaneously launched a large number of supersonic missiles. The dense missiles shot through the sky from several directions, weaving together like a net, almost locking the high-altitude battleship of the Hill Mountain civilization within the strike network. In Military Base 6, Gao Xian rarely showed a hint of tension as he watched the missiles rapidly close in on the enemy battleship, his pupils contracting as he said, "Have they gone mad? They are no longer intercepting our missiles." In the real-time communication channel, Yang Zheng said in a deep voice. No, Lao Gao, they are not mad. They know very well who their greatest threat is. In their eyes, our battleship poses a greater threat than the multitude of missiles. They do not want to miss this opportunity to take the initiative and aim to shoot down our battleship in one go. At this moment, the person in charge of Military Base 2 spoke up. No, they have activated the electromagnetic shield. The number of our missiles that can catch up with them is already limited, and with the electromagnetic shield, only a few of our missiles will be able to hit their battleship. They can afford such a cost. The electromagnetic deflection shield. Gao Xian silently repeated this term, his voice somewhat cold. These are all technologies still in the theoretical stage. They must not let these damned foreign entities sink our warships. However, on the battlefield, among the 8th level warships, no, Wang Cheng, this situation is not right. They are becoming increasingly precise in their predictions of us. Their computational power has been continuously improving. And if this continues, they will soon exhaust our algorithms. Our 83rd course change might very well be when they open fire. Su Xinghai suddenly shouted loudly, raising his head, his eyes bloodshot. The bridge was already filled with a tense atmosphere, and everyone in the fire control unit was firing like mad. Su Xinghai and Wang Cheng were at the helm, but their backs were already soaked with sweat, cold perspiration running down. This battle was lasting longer than they had imagined. Yet it was extremely perilous. Every second was a life or death race, every moment a fierce struggle. If hit by the enemy's kinetic weapons, it would mean the destruction of the ship and loss of life. Wang Cheng glanced urgently. They had now changed their movement pattern for the 81st time. They had a way to increase their computational power limit. Su Xinghai, change the plan immediately. 82nd course change. We need to elevate our altitude. Su Xinghai looked at Wang Cheng, unsure of what he intended to do, but now was not the time for questions. Having been roommates for many years, sharing life and death, they had long trusted each other with their lives. In this moment, all he could do was believe and obey. Without hesitation, he adjusted the original parameters. The 8th level warship executed its 82nd course change, suddenly transforming from level flight to a rising arc. Wang Cheng's gaze was resolute as he followed the trajectory calculated by the warship's supercomputer, ascending in an arc. The warship accelerated in stages, surging from the previous speed of 6 Mach to 7 Mach, then 8 Mach. The speed of the 8th level warship had not yet reached its limit. The warships of the Qiushan civilization began to accelerate instantly, synchronously increasing their altitude. Within their computational matrix, information was exchanged rapidly, and they almost immediately detected Wang Cheng's strategic intent. He wanted to close the distance with our ship. Once the distance exceeded the threshold, our kinetic weapons would pose a significantly reduced threat to the target human warship. Moreover, if the target human warship successfully changed direction, it could potentially breach our kinetic weapons with its main cannon. Continuing to ascend in height, accelerating to match the target human warship's speed was a risky move. Rising in this manner would limit the target human warship's possible directions of movement. There was no need to exhaust the 83rd course change. Once he finished this round of course change, we would be able to exhaust their algorithms and hit them with certainty. Indeed, this was why the commander of the target human warship did not charge directly at us from the beginning. Charging at us could directly neutralize the threat of kinetic weapons. But in that state of motion, the enemy ship's evasion space was almost zero, making it impossible to reach the expected distance before being destroyed by us. They were all in a desperate gamble. They were nearing their limits. Destroy them. At this moment, within the 8th level warship, Wang Cheng was also looking up, gazing at the sky. At this moment, his level 8 battleship was still nearly 20,000 meters away from the enemy ship of the Qiu Mountain civilization. With the naked eye, he could barely see it as an inconspicuous dot. Without the intelligent auxiliary system providing dynamic positioning on the holographic screen, he would have had no way to locate the enemy. However, Wang Cheng understood what the alien life forms aboard that ship were thinking, what they could conceive. He could also conceive. In this level of combat, any tactics lost their significance in front of each other's formidable information systems. Only hard equipment and conditions could become the key to breaking the deadlock. The Qiu Mountain civilization's biological entities were correct in their guess. Wang Cheng was indeed going all in. It was a risky decision, but it was a necessary one. He did not want to wait for death. If they continued to advance synchronously as they had before, they would eventually be outmaneuvered and shot down in the sky. Most of the parameters of his battleship had already been fully exposed, including various turrets and energy shields, and the same was true for the Qiu Mountain civilization's ship. The technologies and performances that had already been displayed no longer held meaning, as the enemy could compute them all. But there was one exception, the maximum speed. The Qiu Mountain civilization did not know what the maximum speed of Wang Cheng's battleship was, and Wang Cheng did not know the maximum speed of the Qiu Mountain civilization's ship either. Therefore, Wang Cheng decided to take a gamble. As long as his speed was fast enough, exceeding the maximum speed of the Qiu Mountain civilization's ship, With the speed achievable by his level 8 battleship at 25,000 meters altitude, he could not only reach incredible speeds, but also minimize the lethality of their kinetic weapons against his side. Thus, for the 82nd time, Wang Cheng's level 8 battleship gracefully ascended from the ground in a cold, fierce arc. It shot towards the sky. It shot towards the enemy ship of the Qiu Mountain civilization. Chapter 264. Who can come to battle? They had reached their limit. Where has our aerial formation moved to? It's gone. At this angle, we can't catch up with them. In military base number 6, Gao Xian averted his gaze from the electronic map. On the battlefield, the distance between the two battleships was rapidly closing. They could no longer capture a clear dynamic image and could only rely on the electronic system's simulation to determine the relative positions of the two ships. The Qiu Mountain civilization's battleship was continuously gaining altitude, but it was not a spacecraft and could not reach the first cosmic velocity. Its ascent speed was slowing down. While conversely, the speed of their human battleships was increasing rapidly as they braced their shields and surged upward, breaking through the sound barrier at speeds exceeding 9 Mach, which is 9 times the speed of sound. No existing fighter jets in the Federation could reach this speed level. Moreover, the synchronization with Wang Cheng's battleship had also deviated. This was a desperate attack, but they might succeed. The Qiu Mountain civilization's aircraft could not reach the maximum speed of their battleship. Yang Zheng excitedly spoke up in military base number 3, his fists unconsciously clenching, as if he had returned to the moment he first participated in a military exercise, filled with the tension and anticipation of that experience. But this is no longer a military exercise, it is a real war. Victory means the restoration of humanity in the capital region, while defeat means the overwhelming dominance of the opposing civilization. In the command centers of military bases at all levels, almost everyone's attention and emotions are stirred. On the battlefield, humanity's warships are still ascending, like arrows shot from a bow, rapidly soaring towards the sky. Within the opposing civilization's warships, there is frustration. The target human warship's maximum speed surpasses ours. We can no longer maintain synchronization. The distance will close by 11,000 meters after the 82nd change in their movement pattern. The effectiveness of our kinetic weapons against their ships will decrease by 65%. Prepare to fire. Kinetic weapons ready. We cannot allow the target human warship to get any closer, but our final calculations are not yet complete. There is no time left. He has gambled and won. If we cannot destroy the target human warship in one strike, even 100% accuracy will be meaningless. Final adjustments to the kinetic weapons are made, preparing to fire. The life force of the opposing civilization is instantly mobilized, and their kinetic weapons slowly adjust their angles. Aiming at the dark warship below, the warship of the capital is still ascending, still climbing. The last batch of conventional missiles launched from his warship has already been outpaced by the high-speed warships. The capital's response can no longer keep up with such extreme speeds, and can only rely on the ship's intelligent assistance system to ascend along the predetermined trajectory, targeting the enemy ships. Outside the warship, the wind howls, and terrifying sonic booms are deafening, but inside the warship, there is a profound silence. No one speaks. No one communicates. Everyone has returned to their seats, readying for safety measures. At this moment, the warship is angled upwards, and as they gently look up from their positions, they can see the sky rapidly approaching. They all know that the final moment is near. Su Xinghai looks towards the capital ahead, while the capital is intently focused on the calculation screen of their relative positions. His first step was right. The speed advantage of his warship is overwhelming, at maximum speed. The opposing civilization can no longer synchronize with him, and the distance continues to close. His warship soars like a rocket, but under such conditions, he has also become a living target. However, that no longer matters, as long as he enters a safe distance before the 83rd change in movement pattern. Their kinetic weapons will no longer pose a threat, and soon, the outcome is revealed. Warning: kinetic weapons detected. Kinetic weapons detected. They have opened fire. Before the capital's level 8 warship can enter the 83rd change in movement pattern, the opposing civilization has already fired. At this moment, the capital's warship is still 17,000 meters away from the opposing civilization's warship. If the opposing kinetic weapons hit, the position they strike will be as if it were made of paper, easily cut away. At this distance, there remains a lethal threat to the warship. The ship's computer rapidly calculates the strike trajectory, and the captain grips the control stick tightly, but dares not move. Due to the extreme speed of this moment, it exceeded his reaction capability as a secondary awakener. He was unable to intervene. Human interference might lead to changes beyond the calculations of both sides' computers, such as evading the opponent's kinetic weapons. But it could also mean that the unknown variable of his actions could cause the battleship to collide with kinetic weapons that might not have hit otherwise. He believed in his battleship. The algorithms of the supercomputer on his ship had not yet been fully explored by the opponent. They had not yet reached the 83rd change in motion laws. The opponent was now firing. also taking a gamble. Theoretically, since it was a gamble, this kinetic weapon could not possibly hit his level 8 battleship. Therefore, although he firmly gripped the control stick, he remained motionless, his gaze fixed on the information screen of the battleship. The kinetic weapon and his level 8 battleship were both in a high-speed collision course. The speed of the kinetic weapon far exceeded the battleship's movement speed, even faster than the electromagnetic railgun fired by the battleship. It plummeted from high altitude, accelerating faster and faster, with its gravitational potential energy rapidly converting into terrifying kinetic energy. From the moment he heard the warning to when their battleship and the kinetic weapon overlapped, only 4 blinks of an eye passed. They met at an altitude of 15,557 meters. A dazzling fireball flickered on the right side of the battleship, and at that moment, the ship shook violently. On the captain's control panel in front of him, the right side of the battleship's condition model instantly lit up in a gruesome crimson. But that was all. The kinetic weapon failed to hit. Theoretically, it was impossible to hit, and in reality, it also missed, brushing past his level 8 battleship. The rapidly deployed shield system was torn apart in an instant by its powerful kinetic energy, and the outer armor plate on the right side of the battleship was ripped apart, exposing the cargo hold inside, from which supplies were sucked out like a torrential rain due to the pressure difference, scattering into the sky. However, both successfully passed each other. The kinetic weapon fell rapidly downward, while his level 8 battleship continued to ascend. The shriek of the kinetic weapon crashing to the ground could not catch up with his battleship. At 9 times the speed of sound, there was no time for him to celebrate surviving the ordeal. He immediately switched the battleship's motion posture, no longer frequently changing direction, but instead shooting straight up like a black line towards the sky. The kinetic weapon of the civilization he faced had already been fired, and there was no longer a need to constantly change directions to evade. He just needed to charge straight up. Main cannon prepare, Shu Bing, Lao San. Get ready to fire freely. It's time for our counterattack. The clouds above were violently split open by the level 8 battleship. From a distance, it looked like a giant whale leaping out of the sea, but the speed of Wang Cheng's battleship was too fast as it burst through the clouds. The supersonic airflow tore the clouds apart. Meanwhile, high above, the civilization was fleeing. After their failed strike, confirming that they had not hit the level 8 battleship, they immediately turned to escape. At this moment, they still had an advantage in altitude and distance over Wang Cheng's battleship, giving them a chance to run. Damn it, they want to escape. The flagship gritted its teeth and fired the main cannon in advance. But this shot missed the enemy ship's hull and only hit the left rear of their flat warship. From the flagship's perspective, a huge fireball erupted from the enemy vessel. However, the ships of the Chiu Mountain civilization seemed to disregard everything. They were not defending or dodging, but were making a full-speed retreat. They understood very well that their ships could not match the speed of the target human vessels. If they did not take advantage of the current distance to accelerate and flee, once the flagship caught up, it would be a fight to the finish. The ships of the Chiu Mountain civilization soared at high altitude, while the flagship began to decelerate. The commander gazed into the sky, watching as the enemy ships entered an optical stealth state and vanished from the flagship's electronic radar. Yet, the flagship did not pursue further but also reduced its speed. They were being overly cautious. In fact, the Chiu Mountain civilization did not need to be so careful. The flagship was merely bluffing. Its right side was damaged, and one side of its armor had been torn apart by the enemy's kinetic weapons. Under such circumstances, the flagship could maintain a regular combat speed, but it could not sustain 9 Mach or even 5 Mach. Otherwise, at such speeds, the ship would be torn apart like cloth. At ultra-high speeds, even the smallest breach could be fatal. Given the technological capabilities displayed by the Chiu Mountain civilization's ships, even if they engaged the flagship head-on, the outcome remained uncertain. However, the Chiu Mountain civilization was extremely cautious. After one failed strike, they were unwilling to engage further and retreated from the battlefield. It seems that the wealthier individuals are often the more timid, and the more powerful civilizations are no different. They did not want to take any risks in combat. Without absolute certainty of victory, they would avoid confrontation. Unfortunately, they were not brought down. At this moment, the flagship had reached an altitude of 25,000 meters, surrounded by cold emptiness, where one could faintly see the curved edge of the earth. Above, the dark backdrop of the starry sky was visible. The intertwining of blue and darkness marked the boundary between land and sky, as well as the junction of the galaxy and atmosphere. A strange sense of tranquility enveloped the scene. The commander took a deep breath, feeling a hint of regret. Shu Bing remarked, "Indeed, it was too powerful. Almost on par with us. Its escape poses a significant challenge for us, without eliminating the ships of the Chiu Mountain civilization. Our next operations in the Kyoto area will still be hindered." Zhang Chao behind them let out a sigh of relief, saying, "That's fine, that's fine. It was too terrifying just now. We could have been finished at any moment." The commander took a deep breath and slowly began to descend. With the Chiu Mountain civilization retreating, there was no need for the flagship to remain silent. Instead, it patrolled over the land. Below them, the ground still trembled from the reactions triggered by the kinetic weapons hitting the surface. The flagship had suffered damage to one side, but it did not affect critical areas. Not needing to accelerate to a certain speed, the commander was in no rush to retreat and continued to patrol over the Kyoto area. Wherever it passed, other recovering civilizations fled in panic. The prototype of the fourth mothership built by the Strim civilization in the central area of Kyoto was directly destroyed by the royal city, causing countless Strim life forms to flee desperately. As the royal city swept across this land, it witnessed, at the construction site of the fourth mothership of the Strim civilization, a large number of human laborers, regardless of gender or age, some even missing arms or legs, being driven to work like a herd of pigs and dogs, treated and driven around by these alien civilizations. The dead were buried in large pits nearby, with human corpses piled high, the number of casualties unknown. This is the fate of a defeated civilization. Such a scene was shocking and stirred up endless anger. Upon witnessing this, the royal city opened fire personally, slaughtering the Strim civilization, informing the humans who were being driven and enslaved that they no longer needed to be oppressed. The coalition of the four recovering civilizations had collapsed, and the Kyoto region was back under human control. Wherever the royal battleship went, within Kyoto, forces fled in all directions, unable to form a cohesive defense, and no one dared to fight again. Chapter 265. Where do they come from? On the ruins of the metal mines, the second mothership had been turned upside down. A group of short Strim civilization beings were escorted out by Yongxi, ready for collective execution. These diminutive Strim life forms, facing death, remained arrogant, shouting insults in broken human language. You humans won't last much longer. Your era has ended. Our civilization will replace you and become the ultimate victor. Today is just your lucky day. You are all doomed. You are all going to die. In response, the human warriors merely scoffed. Before you say those words, take a look behind you. Your mothership is as fragile as paper before our battleships. The outcome is clear to you. If you really are formidable, don't just talk. Let your mothership show itself and fight us. The Strim beings desperately screamed and struggled, wanting to fight the humans, but their situation was dire. Their biology was inherently weak, and without the protection of the heavy weapons they crafted, they were no match for even ordinary human adults, making it impossible for them to stir up any commotion. Yongxi watched this scene as groups of captives were escorted out, feeling a sense of relief in his heart. Just a week prior, when their survivor base in Kyoto was breached, there had been a similar scene, only the positions were reversed. Ordinary survivors of Kyoto and captured warriors were dragged out from their hiding places by these ugly alien beings, lined up in the streets, and subjected to various inhumane tortures. Blood flowed like rivers, and the land was scorched. In the eyes of the alien beings, humans were nothing more than animals, slaughtered at will. As soldiers, who could not harbor a sense of indignation in their hearts. Especially after the fall of the ancient capital, they faced defeat after defeat, forced to retreat and hide. Even watching as the airships of these foreign civilizations flew chaotically in the sky, arrogantly urging all humans to surrender. Fear gripped the hearts of many, and panic spread in all directions, causing even the most steadfast to waver. The impulsive ones wished to charge out and confront these detestable invaders, while the timid trembled in terror, swayed by the temptation to surrender. But today, all of that changed. On the battlefield, some soldiers were even lying on the ground, crying out in overwhelming emotion. It was a mix of excitement and exhilaration. In this battle, they had drawn the attention of the enemy mothership and other revived civilizations. Suffering heavy losses, yet they felt no despair, only thrill and pride. They now possessed their own warships. They had their own spacecraft. Their warships had ruthlessly destroyed these revived civilizations. Among the ranks of the victorious, there was an old veteran who lost both legs in this battle, yet his face radiated with pride and joy. Pain seemed meaningless to him as he bled profusely. He should have been rushed for medical attention, but he clung tightly to his commander's hand, his consciousness fading. Yet he still managed to say, "Commander, did you see? Do you think our brothers who died at the hands of these invaders saw it? That is our warship. I will never forget the arrogance of the Strahlum when they breached our defenses in Kyoto. Today, we crushed them, we made them pay the price. Our warships annihilated them just as they had done to us, shattering their pride and confidence." The feelings swirling within the commander were indescribable. He could only gaze into the distance, wishing to catch one last glimpse of the now invisible human warship. He remembered while the night Kyoto fell, when kinetic weapons rained down from the sky, and he was stationed on the outskirts. He heard the thunderous booms and saw everything in the Kyoto area collapse amidst the earthquake, the defenses of the survivor base crumbling in an instant, with thousands of survivors perishing under the assault of the kinetic weapons. Then, amidst the rolling smoke, the mothership of the Stralum civilization charged in, like a mad steel bull. Unstoppable, their brother units rushed forward one after another, only to be wiped out in despair. But today, everything changed. Humanity triumphed. The joy of victory was tinged with a faint sadness, lingering in the hearts of everyone on this battlefield. This same emotion spread across the various military bases, all reporting the great victory of this battle. The staff at the bases and the ordinary survivors being sheltered all displayed expressions of ecstatic joy, because this meant they no longer had to live in fear, no longer had to hide away. They could return to the land that belonged to them. However, the joy of the lower-ranking soldiers was tempered at the higher levels of the Federation in the Kyoto region. Many senior officers are still somewhat bewildered at this moment. Although they are excited and happy, their different identities and ranks lead them to think more deeply. The major battle has temporarily settled, but there are still remnants of the ground-dwelling species, the Aryans, and the stream civilization that need to be hunted down. The battlefield needs to be cleaned up, and there are many other matters to attend to. Beyond this, a question lingers in the minds of these individuals. Where did the human warship that soared above the battlefield today, defeating the strongest revived civilizations of the Stream and Shoshan regions like a god of war, come from? Inside military base number 6, Gao Xian furrowed his brow deeply. Just now, he witnessed their human warship determine the outcome against the Shoshan civilization's warship, which was struck and fled into the vast sky. The entire command center erupted in excitement, and even Gao Xian couldn't help but shout out, his excitement and joy evident. He felt a deep sigh of relief in his heart, knowing that even the Shoshan civilization's warship had temporarily avoided danger, meaning their situation could finally stabilize. With this human warship present, the existing 4 major civilizations within the capital could no longer stir up any trouble. Under the absolute technical advantage, the 4 civilizations had to behave, as their technological superiority was crushed by the human warship, leaving them unable to lift their heads for a lifetime. However, more questions arose. When did our Federation acquire such a formidable aircraft? Where did it come from? Who was the pilot? Why had it not appeared before? Can the technology of this warship be widely utilized? Not only Gao Xian was puzzled, other commanders involved in the joint command, like Yang Zheng, also shared the same doubts amidst their shock and delight. As witnesses to this battle, they only knew that their warship was powerful before the formal engagement, but they never expected it to be this formidable. According to their plan, they initially aimed to take down a second mothership of the Stream civilization and then strategize further, using guerrilla tactics to gradually wear down the strength of these revived civilizations. After all, although they were strong, they were still outnumbered by humans. Even though the human military suffered heavy losses in the fall of the capital survivor base, they still maintained a numerical advantage. However, they did not anticipate that this warship would, with one strike, create a tremendous impact, exceeding Gao Xian and Yang Zheng's expectations. It not only incapacitated the active forces of the Stream civilization in the Kyoto area, but also sent the Shoshan civilization fleeing in fear. This transformed the battle from a mere test of strength into a significant victory, reversing the previous defeat of the capital. Yet, this only deepened their confusion. Was this incredible interstellar warship truly theirs? Where did it come from? However, it seems that the only place that knows the identity and origin of that human warship, military base number 1, has not provided any information. The highest commander has said nothing, only laying out the upcoming actions and announcing the victory to all survivors before falling into silence. It seems there is no explanation needed. Yang Zheng and Gao Xian are old friends privately, and they quietly exchanged messages, saying, "I say, old Gao, why don't we ask out of genuine curiosity about the Supreme Commander, or perhaps the captain of that warship?" Gao Xian coldly replied, "What is there to ask? The Supreme Commander definitely has his reasons for doing things. If he is not saying anything now, it's simply not the right time. We just need to focus on our own tasks. If you want to directly ask the captain, you can go by yourself. Don't push me into it. I want to be your pawn." That said, standing in the command center of military base number 6, Gao Xian couldn't help but look up at the screen nearby. The human warship was currently hovering over the ruins of Kyoto, its dark and cold hull giving off an otherworldly feeling, creating an overwhelming sense of pressure. Gao Xian murmured softly, "Who exactly are you? Where do you come from?" Chapter 266. Level 4 Black Technology Energy Treasure Chest above the ruins of Kyoto. An 8th-level warship was slowly hovering. It had not moved for 12 minutes. The life forces of the Stream civilization that occupied Kyoto had been completely annihilated by the royal city. Although they had established numerous military fortifications and heavy artillery on the ground, from this perspective, they were indeed enthusiasts of ship cannons. Unfortunately, these temporary positions were as fragile as paper to the royal city, which easily destroyed them. Without the massive mothership, these diminutive beings posed no substantial threat to the warships of the royal city. After clearing the direction of Kyoto, No one in the entire Kyoto battle zone dared to challenge the royal city anymore. The royal city's warships hovered here, and in the entire airspace, besides human civilization, no other life dared to approach or engage in battle with the royal city's warships. This time, the royal city's warship moved from stealth to full firepower, shaking the entire Kyoto area. Together with the human ground forces and air force formations, it directly crushed the once unshakable coalition of the four revived civilizations in this region. The Strime civilization was utterly defeated, and the strongest among the four revived civilizations, the Chioshan civilization, chose to retreat. The earthbound and winged civilizations were now being relentlessly pursued, fleeing in panic. Who else would dare to oppose the royal city? Thus, the royal city's cold warships hovered here, with no one daring to launch another attack. This was intentional on the part of the royal city. They positioned themselves centrally to intimidate all sides, ensuring that neither the Strime civilization nor the Chioshan civilization would dare to make any rash moves. This was power, as well as a display of pride and confidence. However, aboard the warship, the royal city appeared quite prosperous. Everyone was busy, repairing the warship. The royal city was shouting at the damaged area on the right side of the ship, operating large mechanical arms, consuming energy points, manually repairing the warship. Everyone in the bridge was mobilized for the repair, and those at the front lines, Zhang Chao and Wang Qi, had already started operating the mechanical arms. There was no choice. There were no maintenance personnel on the battleship. Wang Cheng and his team had to step in as makeshift repair workers when necessary. Fortunately, the battleship had upgraded to level 8 and had its own self-repair system. The repair materials could be printed on-site using energy points. So all they needed to do was spend some time following the instructions provided by the battleship for simple operations. Now that the battleship had reached level 8, any damage could have a fatal impact on its combat capabilities in high-level domains. Wang Cheng could not afford to ignore the situation, especially since the kinetic weapons of the Chioshan civilization had stripped away a layer from the right side of his battleship. He had to diligently repair the ship. Everyone was mobilized, and even Chun Jigua's subordinates, who were stationed inside the battleship as a mobile unit, were called upon to participate. Suddenly, a sharp whistle pierced the air as 3 Falcon-class aircraft appeared at the edge of the sky above the ruins of Kyoto City. Returning at high speed and entering through the rear compartment of the Level 8 battleship, docking inside. The Level 8 battleship was significantly larger than the Level 7 version, so accommodating 3 Falcon-class aircraft was no problem at all. Chen Jigua and Li Fengshan descended from the aircraft, both excited. They were about to participate in a major battle that night, and with the technological advantages of the Falcon-class aircraft, they could chase down and attack the cylindrical vessels of the Feather People and the Strime civilization. Engaging in aerial combat in reality was exhilarating. Li Fengshan exclaimed, "I never dreamed I would fly alongside the military's air formations. Their piloting skills are impressive, and although we have system assistance, there are areas where we can't match them. Boss, we really need to practice more." Before Chen Jigua could respond, Wang Cheng broadcasted from within the battleship, urging them to hurry and begin repairs. Naturally, Chen Jigua and Li Fengshan did not dare to delay and promptly took action. While Wang Cheng called others over, he freed himself from work. Back at the bridge, it was empty. Even Xu Bing had been pulled away by Wang Cheng to help with repairs. In fact, the intelligence system of the Level 8 battleship was already highly advanced, capable of completing repairs on its own given enough time, as long as there were sufficient energy points. Even if personnel were needed, there was no requirement to mobilize so many people. However, the time required would be much longer than it was now. Although they had won the battle that night, the fighting in the Kyoto area was far from over, and the danger had not yet passed. Their battleship had rushed 1,000 miles from the capital, and today marked its first strike, fully exposing their capabilities. Wang Cheng knew well that while they were currently instilling fear, they were also becoming a thorn in the side of all the revived civilizations. At this moment, human civilization was still the largest in scale and population on Earth. As revived civilizations emerged from the shadows, their primary target would undoubtedly be the human civilization in this context. For example, the Chio Mountain civilization has lost the support of the mothership from the Strime civilization and the collaboration of other civilizations like the Feathered Ones. With only a solitary ship, they dare only to launch sneak attacks, retreating immediately upon failure. This is due to their small numbers. With just one spacecraft and a limited crew. Although the royal city seems to have only one spaceship, it is backed by the entire military force of the capital region. Therefore, the battleship must quickly regain its peak combat power to respond to any sudden situations that may arise. At this moment, Wang Cheng returned to the captain's seat. Sitting upright in the soft chair, and the scenes of fierce battles he had just experienced flashed before his eyes, sending a shiver down his spine. Such a level of battlefield still exerted immense pressure on him. However, he quickly regained his composure. He knew that dwelling on these thoughts was useless. What he needed to do was to enhance his side's combat power as much as possible. His battleship had now reached level 8. Not only with its size nearly doubling compared to a level 7 battleship, but also with upgraded main cannons, a second missile launch silo, and an additional turbo laser cannon. The defense area of the shield system had also increased significantly, but this was still far from enough. He needed more powerful combat strength. He needed a fleet. If he had been flying with the Chiu Mountain civilization at level 9, he might have been able to ignore their targeting, counterattack, and crush their battleships. If he had another battleship at that time, it could have flanked and overwhelmed the Chiu Mountain civilization's solitary ship. System. How many energy points are needed to upgrade from a level 8 to a level 9 battleship? In the quiet bridge, Wang Chung silently asked the system. The system's response came promptly. Dear host, your battleship is currently at level 8. Upgrading to the next level requires 150,000 energy points. Although the system is powerful, its intelligence level is not high, and its functional scope is limited to basic operations. Wang Chung listened to this familiar system prompt and softly repeated the number just provided, 150,000. The energy points required for upgrading from level 8 to level 9 had not only doubled, but also increased by an additional 30,000 points. He glanced at his gains from tonight. He had turned the tide on multiple battlefields, taking down 2 mother ships from the Strime civilization and killing countless beings from that civilization. Meanwhile, Chen Jigua and others with their 3 Falcon spacecraft had also achieved great success in their battles against the Earthwalkers and Feathered Ones, bringing Wang Chung a significant number of energy points. It is worth mentioning that among these 3 revived civilizations, the highest value in energy points did not come from the strongest Strime civilization, but rather from the Feathered Ones, with the Earthwalkers coming in second. The individual value of beings from the Strime civilization turned out to be the lowest. The high value of energy points is related not to their technological level, but to their life forms and biological levels. The Strime life forms themselves are quite weak, unable to even defeat ordinary humans, with an average individual worth only 0.5 energy points, while the average value of the Feathered Ones and Earthwalkers ranges between 3 to 7 energy points. However, the number of individuals from the Strime civilization involved in the massacre at the royal city is quite substantial. On a single mothership, there are tens of thousands of Strime biological entities. Additionally, with his attack on the construction site of the 4th mothership of the Strime civilization in the Kyoto region, the total energy points harvested from these operations, after deducting consumption, amounts to nearly 22,000 energy points. Coupled with the energy points collected from mutated creatures after upgrading the battleship to level 8, the total energy points that Wang Chung currently possesses reaches a full 40,000. In the past, this would have been an astonishing number, enough to make Wang Chung wake up smiling. However, now, these 40,000 energy points are merely a drop in the bucket for upgrading his advanced technology battleships. As the level increases, the consumption for upgrades grows significantly. Although the more energy points consumed, the greater the enhancement of the battleship, each upgrade also means a decrease in the frequency of upgrades. The preparations required for each upgrade have increased considerably. Wang Chung came up with an idea. Perhaps he could first upgrade Chen Jigua's Falcon aircraft, creating the second battleship for his envisioned massive advanced technology fleet. While 40,000 energy points are insufficient to upgrade his main battleship to level 9, they are enough to transform Chen Jigua's Falcon aircraft into a true airship. At this thought, Wang Cheng's eyes narrowed slightly, feeling a bit excited. This is the best way to quickly convert energy points into combat power in a short time. Moreover, during these days of cooperation, Chen Jigua has demonstrated his capability and reliability, and he is not a reckless person who seeks glory without caution, making it possible to trust him with a real battleship. Of course, this matter is not urgent. After confirming the harvest of energy points, Wang Cheng's gaze shifted to his advanced technology treasure chest. After tonight's massacre of numerous alien creatures, he naturally reaped a good amount of advanced technology resource chests. As before, there are still many level 1 advanced technology resource chests, and he has started to skip over the level 1 chests. Soon, something caught his eye. He had unexpectedly obtained a level 4 advanced technology resource chest, something he had never acquired before. This is the highest level of advanced technology resource chest he has obtained so far. If a level 3 advanced technology resource chest can yield small nuclear weapons, what can a level 4 advanced technology resource chest produce? Wang Chung immediately called upon the system to open this level 4 advanced technology resource chest. Chapter 267, Weather and Climate Weapon. The advanced technology resource chest is being opened. Current chest being opened. Level 4 advanced technology resource, chest 1. All resources from the current level chest have been opened. Congratulations, esteemed host. You have obtained 300 energy points in a type of weather and climate weapon. 300 energy points have been credited, and the subsequent notification about the weather weapon surprised Wang Chung slightly. A Level 4 Advanced Technology Resource Chest has yielded a weather weapon? The so-called weather weapons refer to a series of weapons that utilize modern scientific and technological means to artificially create natural disasters such as earthquakes, tsunamis, heavy rain, flash floods, avalanches, extreme heat, and atmospheric phenomena, thereby altering the battlefield environment to achieve military objectives. During the Second World War, there were cases where similar methods were employed to provide a favorable environment for warfare. Artificial rainfall itself is an act of human interference with natural weather conditions. Based on the system, he quickly obtained the parameters for these weather weapons. After just a glance, he realized that this so-called weather climate weapon was not the conventional weather weapon that humanity could currently use, but a true weapon of mass destruction. A remarkable tool for delivering terror strikes against targets by utilizing the natural environment. This weather climate weapon was referred to in the system as Type 1 Lightning Storm Meteorological Weapon. Using this weather weapon, it is possible to trigger a terrifying lightning storm disaster within a range of 7 kilometers, unleashing thousands of thunderous lightning strikes that can indiscriminately strike ground and aerial targets. Theoretically capable of destroying 80% of target units within that 7-kilometer radius. Once the thunder from the Type 1 Lightning Storm meteorological weapon subsides, it produces a ball lightning that targets the center of the disaster cloud where it was detected. This is a large-scale, high-power weapon of mass destruction. Not only can it sweep across a 7-kilometer area, but the final ball lightning can also destroy almost any target within that range. Furthermore, according to the parameters provided by the system, the deployment of this weapon will also cause significant electromagnetic interference, disrupting electronic devices within the strike zone. Naturally, this electromagnetic interference and strike cannot distinguish between friend and foe. Upon seeing this weapon, Wang Cheng's heart began to race. This was an even more exaggerated weapon of mass destruction than the low-yield nuclear weapons from the third-level Black Technology Resource Chest. It was a true Black Technology weather weapon. Moreover, it had almost no side effects. After deployment, there would be no radiation or contamination like with nuclear weapons. The most crucial point was that deploying this weapon did not even require aiming at enemy units. One could simply fire directly overhead. Wow, with this thing, can I not just take action directly? If someone displeases me, I can just strike them with lightning? Wang Cheng felt a surge of excitement. The existence of this weapon undoubtedly added a strategic deterrent to the warship, enhancing its mass destruction capabilities. Of course, there was only one opportunity to use it. But one shot was enough. Without hesitation, Wang Cheng immediately called upon the system to print out the weather weapon obtained from the 4th-level Black Technology treasure chest. Loading it into the warship's arsenal alongside the previously acquired low-yield nuclear weapon, storing it at the highest level for activation at a critical moment. All fear stems from insufficient firepower. With each upgrade of the warship and the acquisition of powerful Black Technology weapons, Wang Cheng felt an odd sense of reassurance. The sense of security that comes from sitting on a super bomb is a wonderfully indescribable feeling. This battle was certainly not fought in vain. Not only did he gain more than 20,000 energy points, which left the 4 major revived civilizations in the Kyoto area unable to raise their heads, but he also acquired such a weather weapon, making it quite a profitable venture. However, at that moment, the attention of the commander suddenly shifted. He noticed that his battleship's radar system had just flickered for a moment, as if it had detected some unusual movement. The anomaly was located at the center of the Kyoto area, somewhere near the edge of the ruins of Kyoto City, not far from the commander's battleship. But it disappeared as quickly as it appeared. The commander furrowed his brow deeply and immediately redirected his attention, scanning the surroundings and activating the anti-stealth system to check if any enemy ships were approaching quietly. But the answer was negative. Both the radar detection results and visual observation showed clear skies above the ruins of Kyoto City, where the battleship hovered, apart from his own ship. There wasn't even a single bird in sight, just some scattered mutated creatures moving around in the city. What was that? Was there an error? Did the damage caused by that kinetic weapon affect the functionality of other systems? The commander issued an order for the battleship's internal systems to conduct a self-check for vulnerabilities. At that moment, he received a communication invitation from the military's 6th military base. He glanced at the battleship's log and discovered that just a few minutes earlier, while he was focused on that weather weapon, the highest commander of the federal Huaxia region at the 1st military base in Kyoto had also sent a message, stating that the head of the 6th military base, Gao Xian, would connect with the commander to discuss the upcoming joint operations in the Kyoto area. The highest commander of the federal Huaxia region was said to be nearly 70 years old, yet he remained sharp-minded, commanding with composure and making clear and accurate judgments. However, he seldom made appearances, especially after the apocalypse and the revival of ancient civilizations, unless it was a matter of great importance. Few had the chance to see him in person. The commander had not enjoyed such treatment, although he had established contact with this highest commander through the Fengtian's side. He had never actually met him. Most of the interactions had been with the commander's assistant, who was responsible for coordinating meetings between the commander and military base heads like Gao Xian, formulating plans, and carrying out joint operations. The commander understood that the high-ranking official's actions were undoubtedly due to caution. This was a special period. Making public appearances and exposing one's whereabouts could impact personal safety. If not for his concealed movements, perhaps he would have been eliminated by the kinetic weapon of the Choshan civilization during the battle for Kyoto. The kinetic weapon fired by the Choshan civilization had not been detected by humanity until it was too late. Its targets were to paralyze the defensive systems of the surviving bases in Kyoto and to destroy the core leadership of humanity. Fortunately, the highest commander had been prepared and was not in Kyoto that day. The commander even suspected that the high-ranking official might not be at the so-called first military base now. Of course, it was just a guess. He took a glance at the radar and confirmed that there seemed to be no issues around him. Without delay, he connected the communication, and this time, he finally accepted the video call request from the other party. Wang Cheng, seated in the captain's chair, quickly appeared in the video conference. Upon joining, he discovered that not only was Gao Xian present, but also Yang Zheng, the head of military base number 3, who was involved in today's operation, along with various officers and military advisors. The video conference had two main venues, namely military bases number 6 and number 3. They had already been waiting in their respective conference rooms, and as soon as Wang Cheng connected, everyone in military bases number 3 and no. 6 instinctively turned their gaze towards him, including prominent figures like Yang Zheng and Gao Xian. Their curiosity was piqued about the captain who had swept the battlefield today, defeating the two most powerful civilizations among the 4 major reviving civilizations. They wondered who this person was, and even if he was human. Previously, Wang Cheng had kept his identity concealed, communicating with Gao Xian and others only briefly, and had never participated in a video call before. So this was the first time they truly saw him. Despite all being high-ranking military officials, accustomed to their positions, they could not resist their innate curiosity and fixated their eyes on Wang Cheng. However, upon seeing him, they were somewhat surprised. They had speculated that Wang Cheng might not be human, possibly an ally from another civilization invited by the Supreme Commander, but they did not expect him to be human. And so young at that, young enough to be younger than most of the officers present. In the military, experience is crucial, especially at the officer level, where experience translates to effectiveness on the battlefield. In their view, the human ship commander had performed excellently in today's battle, decisive and brave, with each judgment precise and actions carried out without hesitation, leading to the sinking of 2 motherships of the Strim civilization and defeating the 4 major reviving civilizations. They assumed the commander was an experienced officer, and if he were human, he might even be someone they knew. Yet, they were taken aback when the young face appeared on their screens. For a moment, there was an awkward silence in both conference rooms of the 2 military bases, where influential figures in the military could cause a seismic shift with just a stomp of their feet. They all stared intently at Wang Cheng, their eyes wide open, not blinking. Their thoughts were shockingly unanimous. The ship's commander was indeed human, but how could he be so young? This was astonishingly young. Wang Cheng nearly thought the screen had frozen, and he shook his arm voluntarily. What is going on? Am I frozen? This can't be. You must be the ones frozen. Chapter 268. Pessimistic situation. This was not right. He couldn't be frozen. His ship was so advanced. It must be their connection that was faulty. The military base's communication system seemed inadequate as well. Wang Cheng leaned closer to the camera, frowning, thinking he was the one frozen. He even reached out to wipe the screen, muttering to himself. Moments later, Gao Xian cleared his throat and said, "Hello, esteemed commander. This seems to be our first meeting. You don't have a card, and neither do we. We are just surprised by your youth and accomplishments." The others in military base number 3 and no. 6 also displayed somewhat awkward expressions. There was no doubt that the previous situation was tense, and Wang Cheng's mutterings near the camera were all overheard. The communication system at the military base was clearly inadequate, which was evident in their strange expressions. Coughing, Wang Cheng also felt a bit embarrassed. Fortunately, he had seen enough of the world by now. The revived beings had learned to put on a good front, and he understood well that as long as he wasn't awkward, it was others who would be. He naturally leaned back, straightened up, and acted as if those mutterings hadn't come from him. Looking ahead, his tone became serious as he responded, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Commander Gao Xian, Commander Yang Zheng, and everyone else. Thank you for your cooperation in tonight's operations." Gao Xian nodded silently, smoothly transitioning into the next topic. This video conference wasn't meant to be a spectacle about Wang Cheng. The major battle in the Kyoto region had just ended less than 2 hours ago, and everyone knew that the situation was far from over. Gao Xian quickly steered the conversation toward the main topic, how to clean up the battlefield. In this regard, Wang Cheng had little to contribute, as cleaning up the battlefield and eliminating the remnants of the 4 major revived civilizations were military tasks. Although Wang Chung was technically skilled, the revived beings were scattered and fleeing in all directions. If he were to track them down one by one, he would exhaust himself. Of course, the military had assigned him this minor task. Gao Xian and Yang Zheng didn't even inquire about Wang Chung's identity or his worship. They were very restrained. At this moment, their focus was on the bigger picture. After the initial surprise and awkwardness, they quickly got back on track, with only one requirement for Wang Chung. If the flagship of the Shrine civilization or the warships of the Choshan civilization appeared, Wang Chung would be urgently needed to engage. This meant that Wang Chung would have to remain in the Kyoto region for the time being. He understood the principle of eliminating threats completely and nodded directly, saying, "I understand. Before dawn, my ship will re-enter a silent state, leaving only a communication channel for direct identification with the High Commander of Military Base Number 6. Please notify me of any developments, and I will arrive at the battlefield at the earliest opportunity." That night, Wang Chung had already been sufficiently assertive, demonstrating his strength. Tomorrow, there would be no need for him to act so boldly in the Kyoto area. The military would launch a full-scale assault, and his role, along with his level 8 warship, would remain one of strategic deterrence. It would be better for him to lie in wait than to make his presence known. Because he concealed himself, others did not know his location, and neither the Chiu Mountain civilization nor the Shrine civilization dared to take action. If they were discovered by human forces, they would only have the option to flee in panic, and they did not even dare to engage in battle with humans, as they were unaware of the whereabouts of the Royal City's warships. Firing recklessly could likely result in being struck by the hidden warships of the Royal City. Yang Zheng said, "This is exactly what we hope to see. The deterrence that the enemy cannot see is far more effective than what is visible. Moreover, the outcome of today's battle will surely spread far and wide. The revived civilizations in the North China region and even the Northeast will be the first to learn of our warship's existence. Commander of the Royal City, although I do not know which theater you come from, please be cautious. Our threats are far from over." At this moment, Gao Xian also spoke, his gaze sweeping across the room. "This is also a reminder from me and Lao Yang to everyone. Although we have now successfully defeated the Shrine civilization, we still cannot leave the cover of the military base in the next phase, as the global situation is changing. I know that many of you may not be aware of these matters, but in this era, the Earth is no longer just humanity's Earth. Our federal government is melting away like snow. All around the world, ancient civilizations are reviving from beneath the Earth. The Shrine civilization and the Chiu Mountain civilization are by no means the most powerful among them. The number of known civilizations in the North China region and the Northeast has already exceeded 10, and they come from different historical layers of the Earth. Although we were born on this planet just like them, due to different growing environments, there may be significant biological differences between us. Each revived civilization is unknown to us, and the unknown is dangerous. Even civilizations weaker than us could potentially deal us heavy blows. What is more critical is that there are even more powerful civilizations among them. The Chiu Mountain civilization is merely a drop in the ocean compared to those truly powerful civilizations. This is no longer our era. We must act cautiously. In the conference rooms on both sides, military officers of all ranks responded in unison. The expression of the Royal City Commander was also somewhat solemn. What Yang Zheng and Gao Xian mentioned, the Royal City Commander was actually aware of as well. Although he had not yet met the highest commander of the federal Huaxiao region since arriving in the Kyoto area, he had received more information from Kyoto. After all, Kyoto is the hub of the Huaxiao region. After the outbreak of the disaster, Kyoto became the information gathering point for the entire Huaxiao region. The information held by Wei Lao from the Fengtian region was also merely provided by Kyoto. Naturally, the Royal City Commander had obtained more relevant news upon his arrival here. The global situation is not optimistic. The federal forces in various regions are retreating steadily. The number of known revived civilizations worldwide has exceeded 100, many of which are incredibly powerful, far more terrifying than the Chiu Mountain civilization. Under the iron hooves of their wars, federal forces are retreating continuously, and human cities are being slaughtered. Currently known, it is not just the North America region. The Hongqing direction has been occupied by powerful civilizations. At sea, regions such as the islands of the East and Southeast Asia have almost completely fallen. After the outbreak of the apocalypse, they became like isolated islands outside the Federation world, facing the dual impact of mutated creatures and revived civilizations, surrounded by enemies and devastation everywhere. In many places, there were even human survivors who voluntarily surrendered at the feet of the revived civilizations, willingly becoming their tools and slaves, even actively giving up the chance to reproduce. In the eyes of these surrendering factions, the Earth did not originally belong to humanity. The revived civilizations were the true masters of the planet. This was evident from the fall of the Kyoto survivor base. The fact that even the survivor base in the capital of the Huaxiao region, Kyoto, was breached showed just how dire the situation was in other areas. What was even more terrifying was that once these revived civilizations defeated the local federal troops, they would enter an unprecedented period of growth, rapidly expanding their power in a short time. Humanity's situation could only worsen. Wang Qing knew that Gao Xian and Yang Zheng still had unspoken words. The information he received from the highest commander of the Huaxia region was that the next phase of the combat plan would likely involve temporarily giving up most of the Huaxia region and consolidating defenses in the North China and Northeast regions, building the last line of defense for the Federal Asian region. This was a helpless choice in a pessimistic scenario, a bleak last resort for humanity amidst the desperate tide of war. However, at present, this was merely a plan, and whether it could become a reality was something even Wang Cheng was unsure about, because now, they had not even cleared out the revived civilizations in the Kyoto area. The flagship of the Strim civilization had hidden away, and the warships of the Qiushan civilization were lurking in the shadows, not completely eradicated. Not to mention the other revived civilizations that occupied this region. In the conference room, Yang Zheng finally spoke. Today's battle is a great victory that invigorates our troops. But it is merely the beginning of a larger war. The era of humanity's monopoly on the globe has ended. This is a difficult era, filled with crises. But I believe that we, as humanity, will ultimately navigate through the torrents of this age. Perhaps those revived civilizations were once the masters of their time. But this era now belongs to humanity. We are the true masters of this age. We will achieve final victory. The path ahead is as tough as iron. Yet we will stride forward from the beginning. In the conference room, the officers echoed with thunderous agreement. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Wang Cheng slowly raised his head, his gaze penetrating through the ship's glass, looking into the distance. The once prosperous human cities had turned to ruins, and smoke billowed across the land. But the view also opened up, revealing the vast expanse of Huaxia, fertile ground stretching for miles, all within sight. This would be a beginning. Wang Cheng's fist, hidden in the shadows, slowly tightened. Chapter 269. Tremors from all directions. The battle in the Kyoto region came to an end with the arrival of dawn. A few days ago, the coalition of 4 major revived civilizations that had trampled over the Kyoto survivor base and slaughtered tens of thousands of human survivors had collapsed. The feathered and terrestrial civilizations were forced to flee in all directions, and news of the war was rapidly spreading to surrounding areas. In the northeast region, in Spring City, towards the direction of Changbai Mountain. This is the source of the Spring City in Zhongjiang, once one of the largest scenic areas in the region, known for its beautiful landscapes and the mysterious Tianqi that has attracted countless visitors. However, it is now a desolate wasteland, with the once picturesque scenery completely destroyed, replaced by countless excavated caves and nests. Even the frozen ground at the mountain peaks has been disturbed, as an alien civilization occupies this area. Their civilization is not strong and lacks intelligence, resembling primitive humans and beasts, yet they possess a remarkable reproductive capability, initially posing a significant threat to the human military in this region. Over time, the advantages of the modernized human forces in the Spring City province began to manifest, leading to a counteroffensive that drove the alien civilization back, which once spread throughout the entire province. Now, their territory has significantly shrunk, with the last remnants of this alien civilization only occupying the area around Changbai Mountain. At the foot of Changbai Mountain, the armored units of the provincial military are gathering, shelling the mountain in an attempt to eradicate them completely. Meanwhile, news from afar is reaching deep within Changbai Mountain. Among the alien beings, an individual suspected to be a shaman emerges from the crowd, holding a massive staff made from the bones of an unknown creature. Approaching the edge of Tianqi, it leaps down, as these beings have a strong biological advantage that allows them to thrive in deep waters. It descends, with a clear objective, ultimately reaching the deepest part of Tianqi. Strangely, in this location, there exists a waterless cavity, radiating a bright light. Here, bizarre creatures that have moved from the Fengtian province are gathered. The shaman speaks in their civilization's language, trembling with fear. We have received the latest news. Humans have launched a powerful spacecraft that has defeated multiple civilizations. When will your spacecraft be operational? If you do not act soon, we will terminate our cooperation with you. Among the bizarre beings, a prominent female figure steps forward, sneering. Terminate our cooperation? Do you think you can compete with those humans outside? In this era, weak civilizations have only 2 choices, to rely on the strong or to be exterminated. You are fortunate. We have given you the opportunity to depend on us. It is not for you to rush us. Leave, shaman of the alien civilization. The shaman, revered by the alien beings, trembles before them, unable to retort against such insults, and can only retreat submissively. After the shaman leaves, a towering bizarre creature steps forward and says, Your Excellency, it seems there are several formidable technological civilizations coming from the capital. How can humans possibly defeat them? It mentioned a spacecraft. Could it be the one from the celestial mandate of humanity? I don't know, But if it is, it would mean they have become even more powerful. This is better, as when our biological fleet sets sail and shatters their pride and confidence, their expressions will surely be quite remarkable. The situation has already changed. Many humans in various regions have fallen, and those powerful civilizations are resurgent, becoming increasingly strong. We must quickly eliminate all humans and other revived life forms in this area. Only then can we occupy this place, continue to develop, and have the means to confront other strong resurgent civilizations. We can become the ultimate winners. The imposing and strange being named Duan deeply lowered its head. I understand, Saintus. I will accelerate our pace and restart our spacecraft as soon as possible. Unfortunately, our civilization's memory has gaps. Otherwise, we could have already utilized the wealth left by our civilization. Under the faint glow, the void behind where they stood was infinitely deep, revealing countless menacing spacecraft. Their structures were as rough as skin, lying within, yet they seemed to breathe slightly, presenting a terrifying and eerie posture that sent chills down one's spine. On the edge of the Celestial Mandate province, scattered cloud-like beings were gathering. They were communicating in a unique manner. The warship remnants of the revived civilization cooperating with humans had become more powerful. It must have come from an incredibly advanced technological civilization. It went to Kyoto, which is an opportunity for us. We no longer have to roam. We have just confirmed that our branch in the Qilu province has also successfully revived, with numbers exceeding 1,000, moving towards our direction. Our opportunity has arrived. However, that revived civilization is too powerful, and together with humans, it will be difficult for us. Did we not observe it? Their great battle in the Kyoto region has shattered such a terrifying revived civilization. Confronting them could very well lead to our demise. No, this is an opportunity. We need not be pessimistic. The great commotion caused by their battle in Kyoto surely did not go unnoticed by others. Civilizations in other directions must have seen it as well. No one will stand by and watch humans gain this support, nor do they wish for humans to become strong. Now, humans are a common enemy for us revived civilizations. The revived being chose the wrong ally. This time, they will face the siege of all civilizations in the Kyoto region, North China, and Northeast regions. No one will allow humans to continue to grow. This is our opportunity. Meanwhile, to the west of Kyoto, in the direction of Lusher County, Fengjing Province, this human county has long turned to ruins. Amid the ruins, numerous human slaves are desperately constructing a brand new menacing mothership under the whips and curses of a group of strange civilization beings. Higher up, at an altitude of 1,200 meters, a cold, imposing steel mothership of the strange civilization hovers in the sky. Unlike the second and third motherships in the Kyoto region, this mothership is no longer rusty. It is larger, with smooth, cold armor on its front, standing in the sky like a towering steel deity. Inside its command center, however, there is an atmosphere of grim determination. The commander of the Strem civilization was in shock. This is impossible. Our two motherships have been sunk by the humans. Even the Chiu Mountain civilization has temporarily avoided confrontation. When did humans acquire such warships? They cannot possess such technology. Commander, the last message from the second mothership instructed us not to return to the Kyoto area. The strength of the human warships is formidable. No, we must go back. They have destroyed our two warships. We cannot show leniency. Besides, didn't we observe that the swarm has shown signs of movement? They detected a signal from the weights in the direction of Kyoto and will surely confront the humans there. If we join forces with them, we may benefit from this. Killing two birds with one stone. Commander, we have received a message from the Chiu Mountain Civilization's warship. They request to ally with us again to plan the destruction of the human warships and to curb human civilization. In the high skies, the massive first mothership continued to ascend and began to change direction. At the same time, on the ground in North China, particularly towards the Beijing-Tianjin region, many small to medium civilizations were shaken. They were all surprised. These areas were in a coupled state, especially the metal mines where the royal city had sunk the second mothership, which was deep within Jizhou province. Many nearby small to medium civilizations witnessed this and were aware of the existence of various civilizations in the Kyoto area, recognizing the strength of both the Chiu Mountain and Strem civilizations. Yet, they had not anticipated that they would be defeated. Humans possessed an incredibly advanced warship, and its powerful might shook the entire North China region. Previously, with the fall of the Kyoto survivors' base, the human front in the surrounding North China region had nearly collapsed. In this situation, these small to medium civilizations profited, launching large-scale massacres against humans to harvest their weapons and resources, seizing opportunities for growth. They believed that humans, under the pressure of four major civilizations in Kyoto, could no longer rise again. But no one expected such a change in the situation. Humans had such powerful strength. Their power was not strong, and upon observing this, they became somewhat indecisive. Just then, they received a series of messages. The Chiu Mountain civilization sent news. hoping to ally with them to plot the destruction of human warships and curb human civilization. The swarm also sent messages, having seen human civilization. These powerful civilizations were ready to take action. They were unwilling to sit idly by while humans grew stronger and would surely destroy the human forces. This was an opportunity. We should enter the war. In the shadows, a terrifying alliance of the revived civilizations was quietly taking shape. In Hongcheng, Ming Province, the city had long turned to ruins. And from the depths of the urban wreckage, enormous insect nests rose one after another, spreading from the ruins into the vast plains of Ming Province, where horrifying and bloody scenes were unfolding. Around the insect lair, there are gruesome mounds of human corpses, emitting a stench that fills the air. Among them are ordinary survivors, including adults, the elderly, and children, all meeting a tragic end. Countless grotesque giant beetles are transporting these bodies, delivering them deep into the lair to become the sustenance of their civilization. Among the corpses, some are not entirely lifeless. For instance, a small-bodied child is wailing and struggling, when suddenly a flying giant beetle descends, piercing the child's body with its blood-stained mouthparts, voraciously draining the flesh and blood, transforming him into a puddle of gore amidst horrific screams, despair, and bloodshed. This is a mad slaughterhouse for humans. Here, humans are treated like livestock, trampled mercilessly, as countless insects come and go in an orderly fashion, sending chills down one's spine. Various forms of insects crawl in and out, all of considerable size with heavy exoskeletons. However, upon closer inspection, one can discern that their biological structure and morphology closely resemble contemporary insects on Earth. They can be seen as the ancient ancestors of modern insect swarms, now resurfacing from the depths of the Earth. Suddenly, from deep within the insect lair, an inaudible subsonic howl echoes, spreading across the entire region and the surrounding wilderness. In an instant, countless insect lairs tremble, and swarms of insects pour forth from their nests in a diverse array, marching in tight formation like a grand army, fiercely advancing into the distance. Chapter 270, The Shadow of Doom. Date, August 1st, 235 of the Federation, 10 o'clock a.m. Above the city of Kyoto, heavy dark clouds drift in from the distance, obscuring half the sky. The 8th-level battleship has concealed itself in the vast sky, remaining motionless since the battle concluded 2 days ago, only occasionally darting out to hunt mutated creatures and gather energy points. The royal city is stationed in central Kyoto, ready to strike at the first sign of trouble. In recent days, military forces in the Kyoto region have been launching assaults from all sides, reclaiming the area and forcing the previously arrogant 4 resurgent civilizations to flee in disarray, rescuing a large number of survivors. However, the entire Kyoto region still lies in desolation. The population of the ruins in Kyoto was more than twice that of the city of Fengtian before the apocalypse, but now, much of it is scorched earth, with few mutated creatures remaining. Instead, a group of survivors finds themselves displaced here. They are former captives of the Strim civilization, some of whom even surrendered voluntarily, becoming slaves. Under the oppressive rule of the Strim civilization, the past week has been a nightmare for them, a life unimaginable to modern people. In this area, the survivors have gathered to form a small camp. Today, the royal city walks among them. Shu Bing follows closely behind, though referred to as a camp. The environment here is quite poor, with everyone hiding among the dilapidated buildings. Some people were fighting fiercely over a pack of biscuits, constantly scrambling and bleeding. When outsiders appeared, they all looked warily at Shubing and Wang Cheng, seemingly afraid that they would also join in the fray. They were astonished and grateful for the massive unknown spacecraft that had rescued them from peril, yet they had no idea who the owner of the ship was. In their eyes, the ship that had fallen into optical invisibility had long since vanished, leaving only the shadow of war behind. Although the abandoned areas of the city were relatively safe, the threats to these ordinary survivors did not come from the outside. I remember that the military had sent a batch of supplies yesterday. Why is it still like this? They fought to the point of injury, and that pack of biscuits might not even be enough for the blood they lost. Shubing furrowed her brows and asked. Wang Cheng slowly lifted his clothing, revealing a uniquely designed laser gun at his waist, which frightened the group fighting over the food, causing them to flee deeper into the ruins. Though their eyes remained fixed on each other, clearly, once they were far away from Wang Cheng and the others, they would continue to fight. Wang Cheng recalled his brief experience of the apocalypse before his rebirth. That was a true depiction of the life of ordinary survivors in the end times. And this scene now was a reflection of that. He replied softly, the military is also short on supplies, and they have no manpower to account for how many survivors are here. They sent just a few people after 2 days, and the survivors here haven't even been gathered together. How could everyone possibly be well fed? A little blood loss is nothing. Without food, there's no strength, and without strength, they can't get food. It's a vicious cycle that will ultimately lead to death. So tell me, Is it worth it to fight for that pack of biscuits? Shubing looked at Wang Chung in surprise. You've been in the military, yet you can't see this. Wang Chung withdrew his gaze and walked forward. His voice calm. We're all striving for the survival of humanity, but in such times, no one can ensure that everyone lives well. The Federation lacks that capability, and we do too. All we can do is prevent those from other races from trampling here and slaughtering them, nothing more. Even we have to endure immense pressure. How the ordinary survivors live and how they manage can only depend on themselves for now. The more intense the battlefield, and the more evenly matched the war, the more this holds true. I understand this logic. As long as humanity does not perish, at least everyone has space to survive. If humanity were to be wiped out, no one could survive under the iron heel of other races. However, I didn't expect the lives of the lower-tier survivors to be so dire. The war here is too intense, and the living conditions for survivors are far worse than in Fengtian. A hint of pity appeared in Shubing's eyes. But she did nothing because she knew it was meaningless. Yes, this is a confluence of turbulent waters. Just yesterday, I received intelligence from Base 1. Currently, in the Jingjinji region, many resurgent civilizations are showing unusual movements. The victory in Kyoto has exceeded their expectations, and their next round of reactions will surely be extremely fierce. Humans have the advantage of familiarity. They can tolerate one another as they develop together in a recovering civilization, but they cannot stand by and watch us grow stronger. The voice of Wang Chung suddenly paused here, and his footsteps came to a halt. They had just turned a corner, and in the shadows of the alley, a group of survivors was simmering something in a pot. There were about 7 or 8 people gathered around a homemade iron pot, using debris as firewood. Boiling water with chunks of meat swirling inside. A few of them showed a fervent look in their eyes. They were evidently better off than the group of survivors Wang Chung had just encountered. Their clothing was relatively neat, and they had a few guns. When they saw Wang Chung and his companion, they did not hide, but stood up warily. Wang Chung raised his weapon again, and their caution turned into apprehension. The leader spoke politely yet cautiously. Brother, this is our meat. If you want to eat, you need to trade something for it. Wang Chung stared at the bubbling meat in the pot and asked, is that human? The leader shook his head. It's a hybrid from the Strange civilization. We don't eat humans. The coldness in Wang Cheng's eyes slightly receded. Eating humans was a line he could not accept, and even if military supplies were running low, it would not reach that extent. Shu Bing showed a look of surprise. You eat those creatures too? She recalled the grotesque appearance of the beings from the Strange civilization she had seen before. Most importantly, they were also intelligent beings. Why can't you eat them? Are you from the capital? They are outsiders. The leader sized up Wang Chung and Shu Bing, who were dressed much more elegantly compared to them. Are you military personnel? If so, I can offer you a bowl of soup for free, as a thank you for saving us. Shu Bing exchanged a glance with Wang Chung. Of course we are, but you really can eat this? Of course. Upon hearing that Wang Chung and his companion were military personnel, the survivors visibly relaxed a bit. Perhaps they also noticed their aversion to the soup made from strange creatures. The leader exhaled, then grit his teeth, and said, they ate my wife in front of me, tearing her intestines and legs apart, biting into her piece by piece. Why shouldn't we eat them? Even if there was food, I would still want to eat them. His voice, filled with hatred, seemed to evoke painful memories in those around him, who showed fierce anger and extreme hatred, speaking out in unison. Yes, those hybrids. We were treated like livestock by them before. If we can't kill them ourselves, we must eat them back. In the corner, there was even a scholarly-looking man with half a lens in his glasses, who, when speaking about the creatures from the Strange civilization, also revealed a fierce look in his eyes. His glasses reflected a near-manic hatred in his pupils. He even took the initiative to speak to Wang Chung and Shu Bing. Have a bowl. Taste what they are like. No need for your supplies. This is our gratitude to you. Without you, we might not only fail to take revenge, but also end up being eaten by those hybrids. The man at the forefront exclaimed excitedly. I heard that the ships that attacked those enemies that day were our warships, extremely advanced, making those enemy motherships flee in panic. Is this true? Do we really have such powerful ships? Are we on the verge of victory? You must eliminate all those enemies. Upon witnessing this scene, Wang Chung and Shu Bing fell silent. This was something Wang Chung had not anticipated. In fact, there were many such situations. Wang Chung had engaged in battle, killing numerous beings from the alien civilization, but he had no interest in their corpses, essentially just attacking and leaving. He never imagined that someone would dig them up and turn them into food. Along the way, there were many similar occurrences, although many survivors were fighting among themselves, with some even coming to blows over a pack of biscuits or bread. When it came to those alien civilizations, most were filled with deep hatred. However, there were also some who were engulfed in fear and pessimism. They did not believe humanity could win and felt completely crushed by this dire era, despairingly hiding in the shadows, expressing their fears to everyone. As Wang Chung and Shu Bing passed by, a disheveled woman shouted at them, Run, run, we humans can't win. Our warships will eventually be shot down. The future world will belong to the alien civilizations. Our era has ended. Even if we win today, it's too late elsewhere. Those aliens are killing everywhere. Hide where no one is. Living another day is a blessing. While the joy of the battle in the capital spread across the land, the shadow of doom had never completely faded. Wang Cheng and Xu Bing walked along with a heavy feeling. Today, it was Wang Cheng who took the initiative to come down and take a look. He wanted to see how this once prosperous city and its survivors were faring. But he never expected to witness such a scene. Hatred and anger, despair and desolation seemed to have become the themes of this world. Xu Bing softly remarked, "If we hadn't defended our base, perhaps the survivors there would be in the same situation." Wang Cheng felt a stir in his heart upon hearing Xu Bing's sentiments and looking at the scene before him. Perhaps it was fear. He could not imagine what it would be like if such things happened to his family and friends. Seeing someone torn apart before his eyes, crying out as they were thrown into boiling water, and being fought over by grotesque monsters, laughing while devouring them, was even more terrifying than watching family and friends being eaten alive by mutated beings. Because it was no longer just killing. It was a frenzied massacre that shattered the psychological defenses of humanity. If that were to happen, he thought he might go insane. From this perspective, he could understand the actions of these survivors. Who could say their current behavior was insane if they had not experienced the same horrors? In the eyes of those alien civilizations, the extinction of humanity would be a desirable outcome. How could they possibly speak of morality to humans? Naturally, they would seek every means to extract value from humanity and use all methods to destroy human will. Some people collapse under this pressure, while others are filled with endless anger and hatred. Even the weakest human's hatred, when gathered, can become a torrent of power. This fear surged in Wang Cheng's heart. He knew he was not yet strong enough and must become stronger. Otherwise, he and his family and friends might meet the same fate. Wang Cheng did not harbor grand ideals of saving the world. He might feel a pang of empathy upon witnessing the suffering of strangers, but he often would not extend a helping hand unless he truly had the strength to do so. However, in this era, this matter has become intimately connected to everyone. With the collapse of civilization looming, everyone is trying to avoid it, yet ultimately, everyone will be engulfed by the ruins. The alien civilizations would spare no human life. Therefore, Wang Cheng chose to fight fiercely before civilization, bearing the torch of humanity. The structure must not fall. He and his family and friends cannot face such a bleak and terrifying death. Wang Cheng silently lowered his head. The scenes before him only strengthened his resolve. The screams of that madwoman filled many with fear, even causing panic about the future, but Wang Cheng felt no panic. Instead, his determination grew stronger. He would go further and further, and his battleships would become more powerful. No civilization could shake the world he upheld. He and his family would survive in this turbulent era. This was the only thing he must guarantee. At that moment, Xu Bing suddenly looked up and said, "Listen." Her gaze shifted to a corner. There stood a former residential building. Half of it collapsed, the glass shattered, seemingly scorched by flames. The remaining structure was mostly charred, standing there like an elderly person weathered by time. Yet in the ruins of Kyoto, this building could still be considered relatively intact. After all, Kyoto had undergone several major changes, first from the apocalyptic mutations, then the defensive battles, and endured prolonged confrontations with four major revived civilizations. Finally, a kinetic weapon triggered a minor earthquake, leading to the fall of the survivor base in Kyoto, and other districts were also affected, leaving few buildings intact. This area, near the construction site of the fourth mothership of the Strum civilization, was even worse, as it had been mined by the Strum civilization, with surrounding buildings intentionally destroyed. Xu Bing's gaze moved away, and Wang Cheng also looked over. They were currently in the gathering area of the surviving population in Kyoto, where most survivors lived on nearby streets. Recognizing them as outsiders, many huddled in the shadows of the dilapidated buildings, watching them with either wariness or curiosity, whispering in corners. Occasionally, some survivors would even resort to violence over minor disputes. Thus, their surroundings were not particularly quiet. Wang Cheng furrowed his brows. He indeed heard a faint sound, seemingly coming from inside the building. It was muffled, and, without the keen hearing of a secondary awakened individual, one might not have noticed it at all. It appeared to be a woman's scream, a cry for help. Upon finally discerning what it was, Xu Bing's beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of fury, and she immediately ran toward the source. Wang Cheng, who had been behind her, opened his mouth and followed after her. The humans enslaved by the Strime civilization would not leave any awakened individuals behind, and the survivors here posed almost no threat to the two secondary awakened individuals with ample combat experience. They did not need to act with excessive caution. Besides, if things went awry, their warship was still overhead. However, Wang Cheng felt that Xu Bing was being a bit impulsive. This was quite in line with her character. Without military orders, she would take action independently, demonstrating a strong, yet somewhat reckless disposition. Wang Chung had noticed this during their previous confrontation in Haiqing. Yet, he still found it hard to reconcile this impulsive side with her naturally cold and stern demeanor. It seemed so inconsistent. Nonetheless, there was a reason for Xu Bing's urgency this time. Inside the dilapidated building, a burly man was holding down a struggling little girl. The girl appeared to be only 12 or 13 years old, her clothes tattered, desperately being torn at by the man. On one side, her young mother had been knocked to the ground with a slap, blood trickling from her mouth as she stared blankly at the scene, seemingly in despair. Only the delicate cries of the little girl echoed weakly within the building. This sound was what Xu Bing and Wang Chung had heard. The ripping of fabric. The man's lewd laughter. The little girl was indeed very delicate looking. Even in this apocalyptic world, her dirty face could not hide her beauty. She would surely grow into a stunning woman, but now she was struggling against the overwhelming strength of a burly adult male, her efforts futile. Like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, she could only watch helplessly as he tore her clothes apart, his large, dirty hands gripping her small wrists tightly, while the other hand greedily and lewdly reached into her clothing. Then, suddenly, a force pulled him back. It wasn't he the man himself who was being pushed away. It was Xu Bing who had grabbed his head from behind and yanked him up, delivering a heavy knee strike to his face. No matter how strong the man was, he was just an ordinary person facing Xu Bing, a secondary awakened individual from a military background. He had no chance to fight back as she unleashed a series of attacks, knocking him to the ground, breaking several of his ribs. He clutched his chest, rolling on the ground in pain. Yet, Xu Bing was not satisfied. She took a step back and then lunged forward, delivering a kick to a vital area. Instantly, crimson blood began to flow from the spot. A full-force kick from a secondary awakened individual was no joke. Finally, Xu Bing stepped back and turned to look behind her. The man in the city was stunned and instinctively took a step back, feeling a deep sense of discomfort. However, he didn't think that the girl was overstepping by dealing with such a man. Meanwhile, the mother and daughter were also taken aback, not expecting the situation to unfold this way. Looking at the two individuals with confusion and helplessness, the little girl appeared remarkably strong. Despite having just gone through a traumatic experience, she didn't cry or shed a single tear. She simply shrank back slightly and pulled her clothes up. At that moment, the woman stepped forward and draped her coat over the girl. Suddenly, the little girl screamed. Behind the woman, the man who had been struck down suddenly became aggressive. His face twisted as he lunged from the ground, pulling out a triangular military dagger from his pocket. His eyes filled with distorted hatred as he howled and shouted. Where did this woman come from, ruining my plans? Die! A light sound was heard. His movement suddenly halted, disbelief and despair crossing his face. Before he collapsed to the ground, a gaping wound appeared on the side of his head, blood pouring out. The city had opened fire. The woman turned her head and nodded towards the city. The man in the city looked curiously at the man on the ground and remarked, "This guy is quite tough. He had several ribs broken and was kicked hard, yet he could still get up and attack." At that moment, the little girl finally raised her head slightly and looked at the woman, softly saying, "Thank you, big sister." She displayed an unexpectedly mature demeanor. Her young mother, momentarily dazed, suddenly wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and face, revealing a beautiful countenance. She quickly got up from the ground and stumbled forward, also disheveled, continuously saying thank you. Then, unexpectedly losing her footing, she fell right into the man's embrace. The expressions of the woman and the man in the city suddenly became somewhat peculiar.